What we're going to roll into first is talking about and answering any questions you might have about Maryland law, what you can and cannot do legally in Maryland with a firearm in general, but also while carrying a firearm. So with that being said, I'm going to give the floor to you all. What kind of questions do you all have about Maryland law, what you can and cannot do in Maryland? Yes, sir.
Before I have a permit, how can I go through Maryland with a firearm?
Okay, so transportation of a firearm, all right? Transportation of a firearm, taking your firearm from one place to the other. We're talking outside of carrying a firearm. We're talking about just strictly the idea of just transporting it, such as you might have done here today. You transported, a firearm to class. When you're transporting a firearm in Maryland, if you're not carrying, you're just transporting, you have to be going to or from somewhere that you're going to be essentially using it. All right, you're going to a class. You're going to the gun shop. You're coming from the gun shop. You're going to the range. You're going out hunting potentially. Maybe you're going out of state to do any one of those actions and or to carry out of state. Like you're going camping in Virginia and you have a permit or you don't and you're going to be open carrying in Virginia. You're going to or from somewhere that you're going to be using it. All right? You couldn't brought the firearm here today, use it, that's great, you leave, all right, and you leave in the vehicle though, you forget in the vehicle, all right, tomorrow, maybe the next day, you're heading somewhere, all right, you get pulled over, and you say, just so you know, I do have a firearm in the vehicle. Okay, where you coming back from, or where you heading? Well, I'm just coming back from the grocery store, but I forgot it in here from the other day, I had gone to a class. That's going to get you in trouble, illegally carrying a firearm, all right, because you're outside of the bounds of the reasons in which you can transport to or from, all right? Now, hopefully, I would hope and imagine that an officer would be reasonable, prudent, wouldn't hem you up and give you a very hard time about a simple mistake, but the law allows that, all right? So I want you to understand throughout the day, I'll explain to you, what the law is and what the law allows and doesn't allow. Obviously, at times, if it's a, somewhat reasonable or minuscule mistake, again, hopefully, a law enforcement officer might be reasonable and prudent and say, hey, look, just so you know, I don't know if you realize that what you're doing, you can't be doing that. Next time, don't do that same thing again, all right? They could send you off with a warning. They could cite you, potentially whatever it might be, potentially whatever it is. They could potentially arrest you, all right? This is a lot like a lot of things we'll talk about today can translate to a certain extent over to driving. All right? There's certain things you can do with driving and stuff. Hey, they could give you a warning. They could cite you, potentially. They could arrest you. Make sure that throughout the day that if you're not sure about what the law actually states, all right, make sure you ask those questions. All right, you clarify those type of things, just like he did with transportation of a firearm. Now, I want to be clear that transportation of a firearm and carrying a firearm are two different things. All right, once he has his carry permit, all right, while he can't, without a carry permit, he can't just transport wherever he feels like. All right, once he has his carry permit, now he can have that gun if he wanted to, unloaded if he wanted to, which I'm not sure why you would want to have it unloaded, but you can have it loaded, you can have it unloaded. You could have it right on the chamber, a magazine inserted, or not. You could have it on your person. You could have it in a case if you wanted to. You could have it in your center console, your glove box, if you wanted to. Right? The law allows that once you have that carry permit. It allows you to wear, carry, and or transport a firearm. All right? Also, kind of going into that. All right? With that Maryland carry permit, all right, it says wear, carry, or transport. It doesn't say wear. It doesn't say wear, conceal, carry, and transport. All right? It says wear, carry, or transport. Carries broad. Includes, but is not limited to, open and or concealed carry. With that Maryland permit, it allows you, the holder of that permit, to be able to open or conceal carry. It's up to you to decide, and that can change day by day. I can open carry today, I can conceal carry tomorrow. I can open carry today, I can also conceal carry at the same time, another handgun. It doesn't limit you on how many handguns and or in the manner in which you carry it. It doesn't say you have to have it on your waistband. All right? It could be in an ankle holster if you wanted to. It could be, if you wanted to, but I wouldn't recommend, in like a bag or a purse. All right? What other good questions might you have about Maryland law?
Let's say you have your permit you're carrying and you go to a post office. How are you supposed to properly secure your weapon?
So post office. What is a post office an example of? It's a federal facility. It's owned and or leased by the federal government and or federal employees are regularly present for the commission of their duties. You cannot take a firearm even into the parking lot of a federal facility. All right? So either one, leave it at home, and or you'd have to properly secure that and not even bring it onto the premise. You'd park off premises and walk on the premises, conduct your business, and get back off premises. You can't even have your firearm on the premises of that federal facility. All right? Does that clarify?
But if you're leaving it in your car, let's say you did that, how are you supposed to secure it in your vehicle?
So there's no perfect. There's no perfect way, all right? And generally speaking, also, I wouldn't recommend that, honestly. Leaving a firearm in your vehicle, secured or otherwise. Because secured is very open to interpretation. What exactly is secured? Your idea and what you might believe to be secured might be very different to a criminal, all right? Nothing is 100% secure. You give someone enough time and or space and or tools, what you thought was secured is not secure at all, and now it's gone. You have no idea where it's at, right? I'm not going to tell you exactly how to secure your firearm in your vehicle. That's going to be an individual choice up to you. There are a bunch of different options out there. You can get these little, per se, gun safes, all right, that you can secure your firearm in, and it is either bolted in and or cable locked with a cable that's not supposed to be easily broken to your either the floorboards or the frame of your vehicle, the frame of your seats at all. I've seen where now, like it comes like Ford. If you order a Ford truck or aftermarket through Ford, you can actually have a gun safe that is inside of your center console. It's bolted down and through your vehicle and stuff. No safe is theft proof. No safe is 100%. Right? It doesn't matter how much you spent on it. It doesn't matter how cool it looks or anything like that. You give someone enough time and or space, and it's gone. All right? Whether in your vehicle or in your home, all right? Whatever gun safe you end up deciding to buy, if you decide to buy a gun safe, regardless, all right, one of the biggest things you can do to help yourself is to bolt the sucker down. All right? It doesn't matter if it's a 52 gun safe that's chock full of whatever, it's heavy as shit, and it's in your basement. All right? Give somebody enough time and tools and people, all right, that's gone. All right? I've seen a story, I forget where it happened, it was nowhere local, but a guy had a nice big ass safe in his garage, right, full of a lot of different expensive and sensitive items. More or less, someone knew it was there when he was away for a trip. Right, they rammed through that freaking garage door. They put a big ass tow strap around it. They ripped it right out of there. It wasn't bolted down. Not that bolting it down is going to guarantee you anything, though. Nothing's guaranteed in life except for taxes and death. All right, but they ripped it out. They pulled it out of there, and they winched it up on a flatbed trailer, and away they went. All right. The biggest thing that you can do to kind of help yourself and make it harder for them is to bolt that sucker down. If you have a nice little bedside safe and stuff that sits on your nightstand, all right, and that's how you secure your bedside gun, well, guess what? If it's not bolted down, I'm just going to walk in your house, I'm going to pick that up, I'm going to take it out to my truck, I'm going to drive home, and I'm going to crack open a 12-pack of beer and get my tools out, and I have all the time in the world to be able to get in that, all right? So know that, think about that when you're going to decide how you're going to secure your firearm, whether inside your home or inside your vehicle, before you go into, before you get out of it and go to, into any type of building, all right? There's times where I may have done that. There's also times where I will never do that. I will never test that, my theory on how secure my firearm is in my vehicle if I'm parked in Baltimore City. If I were to drive to San Francisco, right, where thefts from auto are highly prevalent, and they have lots of experience, and they know how to do what they need to do very efficiently and in a very time-efficient manner, right? Can you carry in a church?
Yes.
You can. Can you carry in a bar or restaurant where alcohol is served? Yes. Can you carry while drinking? You actually can. I want to be clear that what I'm going to be teaching you is what the law is. At times I also tell you my personal recommendation and my thoughts on it, but I'm going to also tell you, be clear on what the law says and what it allows. All right? When it comes to any of that, all right? Nothing. Let me take a step back. What makes something illegal? What makes something illegal? A law regulating it, prohibiting it, banning it. All right? All right? What makes something legal? Nothing makes something illegal, right? Right now, there's nothing on the books, there's nothing in law that says I can pick my nose. But I can pick my nose. All right? If they make a law banning it tomorrow, now I can't pick my nose. All right? For example, can I carry a long gun, a rifle or shotgun openly in Maryland? I can. What law allows me to do that? No law allows me to do that. All right? when it comes to concealed carry of a long gun, right? There's a law explicitly that bans the concealed carry of a long gun. But there's no law that regulates or talks about or bans or allows the open carry of a long gun. Now back to alcohol, and what the law does say is that you cannot carry while intoxicated. Now, with driving, what do we know the legal limit to be? 0.08. Now, if you below 0.07, are you still intoxicated? You are, right? But you're below the legal limit. There is no legal limit when it comes to firearms. It says you just simply can't carry while intoxicated. Could you blow 0.01 and be arrested for illegally carrying a firearm because you're intoxicated? You could, right? Could you blow 0.00 and still be arrested for being intoxicated while carrying a firearm? All right? If I have a beer, all right, crack it open, all right, and I'm sitting here with my beer, all right, context, because context matters, all right, hindsight's 20/20, but let's go ahead and provide you context before we start. I haven't drank it at all. I haven't drank any beers today. I haven't drank any beers for the last 5 days, but I have a beer in my hand and it's open, and I am openly carrying a firearm, and a law enforcement officer sees that, and there's a little extra gravel in the driveway, and I stumble over that patch of gravel, all right? Maybe what they misperceive my words as being slurred, right? It's not actually slurred, it's just how I talk, all right? What they saw, what they heard, all right, can be used to articulate that I was intoxicated while carrying a firearm. While wrong, all right, anything I say or do can and will be used against me. Anything I say, a misperception of a slurring of a word, and or do, stumbling over a little patch of gravel in the driveway, all right, can and will be used against you. And that can be used to articulate that you were under the influence, all right? It's not what you know, it's not what you feel, it's what they can prove, all right? Do you think of a law enforcement officer says, yes, I saw Mr. Gass, he had a beer in his hand, he had a gun on his hip, I heard him slur his words, I saw him stumble around, all right? I reasonably believe that he was under the influence of alcohol. He was intoxicated while carrying. And in Maryland law, that is illegal, so I arrested him as such. All right? Now, again, based on the context and the hindsight, you know that to be inaccurate. But again, it doesn't matter what you know. It doesn't matter what you feel. It's what they can prove. All right? Now, let's just say that I did drink alcohol. All right? I may or may not have had a buddy who worked for me years ago. We know each other, all right? We didn't know each other from the Marine Corps, but he was in the Marine Corps, dealing with some shit, and he blew his fucking brains out, all right? And we were at the funeral home for his funeral, and afterwards, me and a bunch of guys in the parking lot, we cracked open a 12-pack of beer for old Drake, all right? I may or may not have a firearm on me, all right? Now, I think, in my opinion, my personal opinion, you're welcome to disagree. You're not wrong, I'm not wrong, we're not right, you're not right, all right? But I do feel, in my opinion, that with one beer, I can still make a good, moral, ethical decision if I had to be able to defend myself, all right? But it doesn't matter what I think, though, all right? Imagine if an hour, 2 hours, even 3 hours after that one beer at a funeral, 3 hours, all right, because what's the general rule of thumb? 1 drink, 1 hour, right? So 3 hours. Scientifically, this should not affect my judgment at all. All right, that's not my opinion. It's supposed to be science. All right. Imagine if something happens, I feel the need, I have to defend myself. I do, and later in the investigation, it comes up that I was seen at a funeral 3 hours prior drinking a beer. How do you think that's going to work out for me? Do you think that's going to play a role in how my life goes from that point on? Right? Let's say, I'm not getting into the details of the politics of it because people might disagree or agree. I'm not getting into that. But Kyle Rittenhouse case, right? Was that early this year or was that last year now? I lose track. Time flies. But most people are familiar with that case, all right, and have feelings one way or the other. But regardless of what your feelings might be, imagine if at some point during that day, he had been on film or video or even a picture of him with a beer in his possession. How do you think that would have affected that case? Because we know how it played out. He was found not guilty. But how do you think it would have played out if that became a factor? All right? It doesn't matter your personal feelings. It doesn't exactly matter, honestly, about the science behind it. All right? You got to think of the bigger picture. All right? Not just what is legal and moral and ethical and stuff, but you got to think of, what the bigger picture is and how it's going to play out in the long term. You got to think long term. You can't just think of the here and now. All right. So I told you what the law is, what the law states, and what the law allows or doesn't allow, which is kind of vague to a certain extent. I also told you how, hey, without having done anything actually legally wrong, you can be found having done something illegal. Right. It's not a good idea, regardless of what the law might say. It's not a great idea to mix them at all, right? Are you a bad person if you do? No, right? That's all personal opinion. But you got to think of the bigger picture, all right? Can I carry in a school? Can I carry in a school? There we go. So law says you cannot carry in a public school. It doesn't say anything about a private school, all right? So can you carry in a private school? Yes, all right? Now, it doesn't matter what someone's feelings are. It doesn't matter what the lawmakers maybe intended, but they screwed up because they're incompetent. The fact of the matter is the law states you cannot carry in a public school. It doesn't say anything about a private school. Now, again, public schools, you can't carry in a public school. Same thing as a post office. You can't even have it on the grounds. Don't even have it in the parking lot, in your vehicle. All right? Don't take your kids on a Saturday when the school's shut down and go and use the playground and have your firearm on you in that setting, all right? Any other good questions that you might have?
Like you're saying all these Maryland laws. Is there any, like we found with masks, is there county-specific laws that we need to be looking up? Or you said like if it's posted clearly that with the gun and the X, but is there any other ways that we find ourselves in a position that we weren't supposed to be?
Yes. Different counties can, and some are proposing more stricter laws. Like you've fallen, well, not Montgomery County's trying to be the next California by themselves. And I can't, honestly, I don't know each county, because how many there's a county is there in Maryland? 28? I don't know, honestly, each county and what they say on different subsets of it and stuff. I will say I'm going to put that responsibility on you because there's we probably have a lot of people from different counties. We probably have at least 7 or 8 different counties represented here. And even that, on top of that, while we might have 7 different counties with the residents, you also might work in additionally, 10 different counties. So counties can say different things. All right, they have. Like, what was it? I think it was 2, maybe 3 years ago. Calvert County Board of County Commissioners passed an ordinance that said that county employees, whether on or off the clock, could not carry while on county property. All right, didn't say anything about average everyday citizens, just county employees. All right. And honestly, we gave them a fucking really good hard time about that, and within 2 weeks they repealed that. They said, "Oh, my bad, we made a mistake," and they repealed that mistake, which they did not make a mistake. They did it on purpose. But counties can make their own ordinances and stuff, like and towns can too to a certain extent. Like in La Plata, the incorporated limits of La Plata, you cannot discharge a firearm in the incorporated limits of La Plata. Now, there's going to be an exception, obviously, for imminent self-defense. All right, but you can't even be hunting, during gun season here in the incorporated limits of La Plata and discharge a firearm in the incorporated limits. All right, so yes, different towns, different counties, they can make different ordinances and whatnot, and there are some that have that. I'm going to put that onus though on you because I honestly can't remember those off the top of my head, and plus they can be ever changing. In Maryland, they now passed a law that says more or less that you can not. Essentially, you're going to have, if you have an 80% built firearm, all right, you're legally expected to have it serialized and registered with the state before, I believe it's July 1 of next year. All right. Now, nothing says you couldn't carry those. All right. So technically, you don't have to have it serialized yet. All right. So you could carry an unserialized built firearm as of right now, and after July 1, you could carry it still if it was serialized. All right. I'm not saying I like it. All right. But that's the case of the matter. And I will say that is one of those type of deals that I think eventually, how quick, I don't know. I don't want you to use the word quick because that makes it sound like it's going to be imminent. But I do think at some point that case will end up in front of the Supreme Court, and the current Supreme Court, I believe, would slap that down and say that's illegal. You can't force people to do that. But that takes time. That doesn't happen overnight or even in a quick year. It took us a long time to get to the point now where it took us decades to get to the point where average everyday citizens with good intentions, good backgrounds, can pass the training, are now finally able to get their permit in Maryland without having to be someone's, politician or to have this or have that or this or that. There is that. If I'm printing, like this would be very obvious printing. My gun is printing through my shirt, all right, that I can get in trouble for printing. No, all right. Imagine how dumb that'd be to get in trouble for that, but not at all for that, all right? No. So whether open or concealed, whether discreet or not at all, I can walk around like this all damn day and nobody's gonna say shit. Law enforcement, there's nothing they're gonna be able to charge me with, all right? I can walk around like this all damn day and nothing you can charge me with. All right, I have my Maryland carry permit. It allows me to open and or conceal carry, and there's nothing that says that I have to be discreet when I do conceal carry. Nothing about that says I have to be discreet at all. There are states, and I don't know of exact ones that do have that, but there are states that they do have that, and this would be considered brandishing. All right. Now, obviously, I would never carry like this and have it like obvious as shit. If I'm going to carry concealed, I'm going to carry discreet. If I'm going to carry open, I'm just going to be open as shit about it. But there's nothing illegal about printing through your shirt at all, or your jacket, or anything like that. All right? Any other good questions? Yes, sir.
Regardless of permit status, how should a gun be transported in a car?
So outside of a permit, regardless of permit status, generally speaking, you want to have the gun unloaded, separate from the ammunition, as separate as possible. Now, that might be different, depending on what kind of vehicle. All right? If I have a motorcycle with 2 saddlebags, well, that's fire in one saddlebag, ammunition in the other. All right, if I have, a truck, I wouldn't want to have either one of those in the bed of my truck, unsecured from the weather and otherwise. My seats fold up, some seats fold down. I would put either the gun or the ammunition under or behind the back seat, and then have the other separate, maybe in the passenger floorboard. Have it as separate as reasonably possible. All right. It doesn't necessarily have to have a lock through the barrel or the trigger. It doesn't necessarily have to have that. That's not a bad idea, but it's not legally needed. All right. Did that fully answer your question?
I suppose. My concern is I don't have, my whole car is a passenger compartment. So I got my ammo locked in one box, I've got my gun locked in another box. They're separated as far as they go inside the car, but
Yeah.
they're still there.
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, let's put it this way. You want them separated as much as possible. If I get pulled over and I have my gun in my case right next to me on the passenger seat, and next to that I have loaded magazines, and let's say I get pulled over, and there had just been a drive-by shooting 5 minutes prior about a half mile down the street, the cop pulls me over, and I got those reasonably in access of me. I can reasonably use those and get those. That's going to have a different perception than, oh, yes, absolutely. Just so you know, I have a fireman in the vehicle. The ammunition's up here on the floorboard. I put the fireman as far away from me as I could. It's in the back part of my hatchback. All right. There's going to be there's not a legal problem per se either way, but there's a perception that can be there. Just like we talked about the perception when it came to having that open but undrinking beer in my hand while carrying a firearm. All right, you want to, not only for legality purposes, but more or less for perception purposes, have them as separate as possible. Again, law enforcement officers in general can and usually are reasonable people. They understand that, hey, if you're in a hatchback Civic, there's only but so separated they can be. If you're on a motorcycle with saddlebags, there's only but so separated they can be. Imagine if you have a motorcycle with no saddlebags. How separated can they really be? You have to do your best effort to separate them as much as possible and within reason, all right? There's got to be reason there, all right? If you only have a motorcycle, you have no other vehicles, all you have is a motorcycle, no saddlebags, all right? That doesn't mean you can't transport your firearm at all because they're not like 5 feet away, they're not 10 feet away, they're not in separate compartments, all right? You separate them as much as reasonably possible, all right? Magazines. What's the largest magazine that you can own in Maryland? Trick question. You can own whatever you want. All right, what the law states is you cannot buy, sell, even offer sale, manufacture, transfer a magazine that has a capacity for more than 10 rounds. It doesn't say shit. It doesn't say anything about possession, ownership, carrying with, shooting with a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. It does not say that. All right? So what does that mean? The law doesn't state that you can't do those things, so what can you do? Those things. you can own, you can use, you can possess, all right? You can carry with a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds, all right? Like, not that everyone has to do what I do and stuff, but I carry Glock 17. It happens to be that the magazine capacity happens to be also 17 rounds. I have a magazine of 17, one in the chamber, and I usually carry an extra 2 magazines of 17 with me. Perfectly fine, perfectly legal. Now, I can't turn around and say, hey, here you go. Thanks for coming to class today. Here's a 17-round magazine. Even though I didn't sell it to him, I cannot even transfer it. I also can't say, I have no association with them, but let's say that I own Big Dog's Gun Shop. I don't, but let's say I do. I can't say, hey, yeah, you can go to Big Dog's Gun Shop and you can buy magazines from me over there in Virginia. I can't even make that offer of sale while I'm in Maryland. Now, guess what? I have no association with them. I don't own them. So guess what I can do? I can tell you that I bought them over there and that you can do the same thing too. All right? I'm not offering them for sale. I have no association. All right? You can buy them over there, get on 301, drive 10 minutes or so to the bridge, drive 10 minutes past that. They're on the right by the Ace Hardware. You can go in there and buy whatever size magazines you want and walk on out. You could also go there and you could buy a Glock 17. It comes with 3 extra magazines of 17. You can take those magazines out. They'll transfer them to All-Pon, the gun itself. All right? You bring the magazines into Maryland. You go to All-Pon, you do the transfer, wait 7 days, and you pick it up. Now you have your Glock 17 and your 3 magazines of 17 rounds each. All right? So that is something that you could do, legally speaking. All right? So in Maryland, you're not legally compelled, you're not legally required to let law enforcement know that you are in possession of a firearm, that you're carrying a firearm. You're not legally required. All right? So I will say, though, if they ask, it's not good legal advice for me to tell you to lie to them. All right? But if they don't ask, there's nothing compelling you to tell them, to volunteer that information. All right? I will say that my position on this has changed over the years. I used to be of the mindset that I had nothing to hide. All right? I have nothing to hide, so why wouldn't I tell them? All right? Also, they might get me off on a warrant and stuff, so I want to tell them in my mind. All right? Because, hey, I've been speeding. Hey, I tell them I have a firearm. They might be friendly to the firearms. They might say, hey, don't touch yours, don't touch mine. Don't touch yours, I won't touch mine. Hey, real quick, you were just speeding a little bit. Just slow it down. All right? That was my mindset. All right? And to a certain extent, that might be my mindset in other places and stuff, but not in Maryland. Right? Definitely, in general, I do have this mindset. And in Maryland, very specifically, I do, for sure. If they don't ask, I sure as hell ain't telling. Why? Because the gas pedal in my truck is broke, and I can't get the lift up, and I always go 75 or higher. All right? I always get pulled over for that shit. All right? When I get pulled over, if I let them know, hey, just so you know, here's my carry permit. I'm exercising that at this time. All right? They have a lot of times. I have never had a time where the law enforcement officer knew what that was, they knew what that meant, they knew, hey, that's all right, no problems. Where it was just like, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. And it was always like, what? You have your HQL? No, my carry permit. Oh, what? Are you carrying? Yes, I am. I have my carry permits right there in your hand. It's unrestricted. Call the Maryland State Police if you want to verify any of that information on the card and/or anything I might be telling you. All right. I'm gonna be right back. Next thing you know, I got 4 or 5 cop cars behind me with their lights on and stuff. All right. I got maybe one by my door. I got another one behind them. I got another one on the other side of my vehicle, asking questions, learning and stuff. Some of them been on the street for maybe a year, maybe 5 years, maybe 25 years, and they've never seen a carry permit in their freaking life. And now I have the glorious opportunity to spend an hour on the side of the road teaching them about what I'm doing and how it's legal. All right? And a lot of times I'm in a marked company vehicle and stuff, and that's kind of embarrassing to be on the side of the road, marked company vehicle and stuff, got 5 cop cars behind me with lights and stuff on, all right? Making the bayonet and shit. All right? I didn't actually make the bayonet and stuff, but thank God, because that can be embarrassing too. All right? So to avoid all of that, they don't ask, I don't tell. And if honestly, I'm not gonna tell you that I've ever done this, but if they ask and I think I can get away with it, I'm gonna lie to them because it doesn't matter. I understand, I'm not ignorant. I understand why they would want to know. I would want to know too, right? Why if someone has a firearm in the vehicle, right? But it's irrelevant. It's just, let's get our feelings out of the way, right? Let's get our emotions out of the way. Outside of our feelings and our emotions, all right, the fact that I'm carrying a firearm and I was going 63 and a 55 is just as relevant as the fact of whether I had a coffee and a breakfast burrito that morning. It's not relevant to the fact that I was speeding. Again, we're getting outside of our feelings. We're getting outside of our emotions, our desires to know information, all right? Outside of that, it's not relevant. It's not relevant, right? So if they don't ask, I don't tell, and if I had an opportunity to lie to them and or mislead them, then I will. It also depends, lie and mislead is different. They might ask, hey, real quick before we get started, sir, do you have any weapons or contraband in the vehicle that I need to be worried about? No, I do not have any weapons or contraband in the vehicle that you need to be worried about. That would be accurate and true. Now, I may know what they meant and what they were seeking, all right? But based on how they worded that, no, there is no weapons or contraband in the vehicle that you need to be worried about. And move on from there.
Are they allowed to search you?
So are they allowed to search you? They are allowed to search you. If they have a warrant, if they have probable cause that a crime is being committed, and or if you give them consent. Now, if they ask to search you, they're asking because they don't have a warrant, because they don't have probable cause. And I would never consent to a search. All right? I wouldn't give them a hard time about it. I wouldn't be disrespectful. I'd just like, hey, do you have weapons contraband in the vehicle I need to be worried about? No? Hey, real quick, for your safety and for mine, do you mind if I go ahead and take a quick look around inside the vehicle? I appreciate you. I thank you for asking, but no, I'd rather you not. You can not comply, potentially. You could deny their request without being disrespectful, all right? Just simply, respectfully exercise your rights, all right? How is that your ability to do that? How is that legal? How is that protected? The Fifth Amendment. You do not have to self-incriminate and or put yourself in a situation where things can be used to incriminate you. Not that you have anything to hide, not that you're actually doing anything bad or illegal, but like I showed you before, you'd be doing something perfectly legal, but evidence, whether saw, heard, all right, obtained, that can be used to articulate how you were actually in violation of the law, even though you weren't actually doing something illegal, even though you felt like everything was good, all right? So there's no situation where I would ever comply with a request to search me, my vehicle, or my home.
You were talking about keeping gun ammo separate with the permit. Do you actually have to do that?
With a permit, no. That goes out the window, all right? So while you maybe could only transport a firearm to this class separate from the ammunition, all right, because you don't get a carry permit yet, you're going to transport it the same way when you go home later, all right? I carried my firearm here, and it's not loaded now. I unloaded it before I came in. I'll have you all verify it before I start handling it later. But I carried it here today, loaded, ready to go. Round and chamber, magazine inserted, all right? And this wasn't the only firearm that I carried loaded that way, all right? Now, obviously, outside of that, too, I also transported a case full of firearms that y'all are going to be using today. And I transported those, all right? Now, technically, per my permit, I could have carried in my case all those handguns loaded, ready to go. I didn't, because we use them for training purposes and stuff, and that's not a safe and smart decision to make in a training environment, all right? But I could have, all right? But I didn't. I transported those unloaded except for the ammunition completely, all right? Except for the magazines even completely, all right? Once you have your carry permit, it allows you, the holder, to wear, carry, transport while in possession of that carry permit, regardless of where you're going and the reason for it, all right? Also, like he was talking about earlier, he used to have a permit, or may have a permit still, and it was restricted, all right? I don't know what it was restricted to. It might have been valid while conducting business as an employee of ABC, valid while conducting business as an owner of ABC, valid while employed by the DOD or NAVAIR, because you have a top secret clearance or above. All right, it could be restrictions none. All right, they are now not issuing any restricted permits. And if somebody were to have a restricted permit, it is effectively unrestricted now. They issued that memo about, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago now. All right, so even if you were to have a valid permit that's right now valid, but it has a restriction on the back, visibly on the back, it is actually not valid. The restriction is not valid at all. The permit is still valid, but the restriction is not valid at all anymore. All right, and again, what I always tell people too is, well, everything I'm telling you is accurate and true. All right, don't just take my word for it, especially something I have to say as serious as that. All right, verify that stuff. Something like that, that's a policy thing. So verify that with the Maryland State Police. When I tell you about, hey, here's how the law is written when it comes to carrying on, consuming alcohol. Here's what the law says when it comes to magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. Look at those laws, research those laws, find them yourself and read them and look at the words, because the words matter. The words you choose matter. Words matter, and you're going to see that a lot throughout the day. That's going to be a repeated thing. We're talking about law and whatnot. Words matter. All right? All right, so this is exactly how I carry 99% of the time. The same gun, the same light, the same holster. This is exactly how I carry. And the law allows me to do that with my Maryland carry permit. The reason why I do that, all right, the reason why I open carry in Maryland, all right, can anyone take a random guess why? Yes. Fuck yeah. So you must have been in the middle of my class before. Advertisement. It's advertisement. It's a conversation starter. It's advertisement, effective advertisement too, for the company in which I own and I run and how I feed my family. All right, it's advertising. All right, people see that, and honestly, most of the time they say nothing at all. But at times they might see it and they say, "Hey, I didn't know you could do that in Maryland," or "Hey, you can't do that shit," or "Hey, how can I do that?" Hey, funny you might ask. I actually do that for a living. I actually help people get their carry permits. I do the training. We have the fingerprint photographs. I can even do your paperwork for you. Oh yeah, if you don't know and stuff, if you did know before, if you don't know now, it's not hard at all to get your carry permit, And I have classes come up here. It's advertising for the company in which I am. All right. It's not that I think it looks cool. It's not that I think I'm going to scare away bad guys if they walk in somewhere and they're going to do something violent and malicious. It's not that I think that, anything. It's not that I want to mislead people to think that I'm law enforcement, because I do think that that's not my goal or intention, but I do think that at times when people might see me and the way I dress, the way I carry myself, the way I talk, the fact that I carry a gun, the holster which I've chose to use, I do think that people look at me and they might think that I'm law enforcement. And that's never my intentions or my goal. All right? If anybody were to ask, I've had some people ask "Hey officer," about something. I'm like, ho, stop. I don't know what you're about to say or ask me, but I am not law enforcement and I have no intention to be. Never have been. Oh, okay, sorry. All right. That is not at all why I carry the way I do. I told you why I carry the way I do. There's two different sides to it. Some people might say, "Oh yeah, open carry. If I walk into somewhere, if a bad guy walks into somewhere and they're going to do something bad, if they see that person open carrying, they're not going to do anything. They're going to say, "Oh, I'm not going to go in there. I'm going to go to the easier target," which there might be some validity there. And then also there are those violent criminals that would walk in somewhere, see somebody like myself carrying a firearm, and they might just look at me and say, "Well, that's the first person I'm taking out." There's two different sides to that. And I believe to a certain extent, and we can debate about to what extent that is, but I do believe there's validity to both sides of that. All right? But it also depends on the person you meet. All right? There are some criminals that don't give a shit about me. They don't give a shit that I'm carrying a firearm. They don't care. All right? I'm the first person they're going to take out. All right? Again, there's validity to both sides. And then with that being said, if you are going to decide to open carry, you got to be more aware. You should always be aware, but you got to almost be more aware of what's going on around you, who's around you, what's going on, because you kind of silhouette yourself. You kind of put yourself out there, all right? And I understand that, I know that, and I got to deal with that. There's times where I conceal carry. Most times if I'm concealed carrying, it's either because I'm out of state or out of my region that I don't do work at, and there's no benefit for it in that business sense, or maybe I am in Maryland, but I'm going to somebody's wedding. All right, I'm going to somebody's funeral, something like that, maybe at church and stuff. That's not an appropriate time, I feel like, for me to advertise. All right, that's their moment. I don't want to take the attention away from their moment. That's what it is, because if you were to say, "Well, yeah, you only care like that for attention," again, you're fucking right, because it pays the bills. I like paying my bills. I like to feed my kids. I like to put a roof over their head. If you say I do it for attention, you're not wrong at all. All right, and again, I don't want to take the attention from people in their special moments, maybe their last moment, their funeral, right? So there are times where I conceal carry, and there's times, many times, often where I open carry, all right? Now, my reasons for doing that and how I do it and what I do for a living and stuff, that's unique. Not everyone has that. Some people literally want to conceal carry exactly for the opposite because of their business. They are, say, a realtor, or maybe they're a preacher or whatnot. If I am a realtor and I sell houses, it doesn't matter your feelings on guns, whether you like them or not and stuff. Your money spends just as good as the people that do like guns, that do love guns, that do support me carrying a gun. And I want your business, if you don't like guns, just as much as I want the person that does like guns. So I'm going to carry concealed. I'm going to carry discreet because I don't want to offend you. Even though I don't really care about your personal feelings, I do like the fact that I can sell a house to you and be able to pay my bills. So for the literally opposite, I would conceal carry. All right? So different strokes for different folks, different objectives and whatnot. Everything I do is for a reason, down to even the color of holster that I chose, because it stands out, I feel like, more than black. Everything I do for a reason, right? And a lot of it deals with my business and advertising. I feel like I'm a good trainer and stuff, but I feel like I'm even better at advertising and marketing. That, I guess, thoroughly kind of hit it on the head. And it allows me to do both. The permit allows me to do both. I do think that, generally speaking, a lot more people, more or less, are going to be concealed carrying in Maryland. Most people lean towards that because they don't want the attention. They don't want to deal with, whatever might come about from open carry. But, what you choose is up to you, right? All I see in here is grown-ass adults. You all can make grown-ass adult decision for yourself. If you carry a gun at all, how you carry that gun, what color vehicle you drive, whether you drive a truck or a minivan, all right, whether you buy a Glock or a High Point, all right, you got a lot of grown adult decisions that you make every day in your life, and now you have another one that you got to make, all right? Am I going to carry a gun, and how am I going to do that? All right, and that might change a little bit day by day to a certain extent. For the most part, I try to carry consistently, but while I carry like this most of the time and stuff, I went down to Florida for a week for my cousin's wedding, and I carried appendix carry, my Glock 43, which I usually carry too, but I only carried that for the most part while I was down there. And I carried appendix carry, and I dressed accordingly for that. It was hot as shit in Naples, Florida. All right, so I didn't wear black shirts, I didn't wear long sleeves and whatnot. I wore, some nice little button-ups in light color. We'll talk about clothing, we'll talk about the color clothing that you use. We'll talk about that a little bit more later too. This training actually meets the requirements for that. So this class, the way we do it and stuff for HQL, this is much different than what other classes do. Essentially, you're in the same class as the wear and carry people. You pay a lesser fee, probably, but this is the same training for that. So this meets the requirements for that. So this, after conclusion of this training, you can also get the train certification for Maryland as well. Some places, everyone does a little bit different and stuff. The way I do my HQO class now is the same way I do my carry classes now. All right, so you're getting the same experience. And if you ever decided you wanted to change your mind, hey, I think I might want to carry. Hey, well, guess what? You've already met their training requirements. We just got to take care of some more paperwork. All right. So yes, this is that training now. All right. Yeah, some places they just do like a basic handgun class. And they'll just do a basic talk on law. They'll do a quick thing about how to take apart your gun and whatnot. They'll have you shoot one round and say, all right, go forth and be fruitful. I don't do it that way. I don't do it that way anymore. Flying with guns, all right? So, a couple things. Let me tie my shoe real quick. So, I have flown. The best way to put it is just to tell you how it goes and how it's been for me. I've flown twice with Firearms. Once to Utah 7 years ago now, and then Texas last May. And both times it was mostly the same. And these things can change from time to time. But from those two trips in that gap, there was no change at all, really. So what I always say is double check what the TSA rules are and the airline's rules are before you go on your trip, whether that morning and or the night before. And when you do that, print those off and have that physically with you on your person, all right? Because you might meet a TSA and or airline employee that has no idea what the rules are. And they confront you with rules that are made up in their mind that they thought they heard somewhere. All right, it's nice to have a print off and be prepared. Like, actually, this is what your airline says. Actually, this is what TSA says. And 95% of the time, you won't have a problem at all with them. But occasionally, you have that new person that has no idea how to do their job, and they want to be, whatever. Let's see. Let me borrow this case real quick. This is essentially the case that I use when I go. So this is a Smith & Wesson case. This happens to be the one that I use. But you can use other ones. But it's a double-sided hard case. Notice how it's lockable. I can put a lock right through there. All right. Double-sided hard case. All right. I would open it up. All right. You'd see 3 magazines in there, my handgun, and then a box of 50 rounds of ammunition. All right. The ammunition is not in the magazines, nor is it in the chamber of the gun, nor is the magazines in the gun. All right, the ammunition is the original packaging. The magazines are empty. The gun is empty. Doesn't have to be a lock on the gun itself. All right, close it up, lock. All right, put that in my suitcase. Not just could I though? I could just weigh this and have them put this underneath the plane, but I want to have it in my suitcase so that it's less of a target for thieving. All right, but I put it in my suitcase. All right, I walk up to where they weigh your bags, check baggage and whatnot. They weigh your bags. They put a little tag on the outside. They put it in the plane. Well, at that point in time, you go up there, and what you say is, "I have an item to declare." All right, don't walk into no airport and say to nobody, "I've got a gun." That ain't gonna work out for you. All right, I've got an item to declare. Okay, what is it? Unzip my suitcase, pull my case out. All right, unlock it, turn it towards them, and it's on top of the counter. It's a firearm. As discreetly as possible. And technically, you don't have to even say it's a firearm. You just show them. All right. Okay. No. And most of the time, okay, no big deal. Real quick, go ahead and read this statement real quick and sign that and date that. Just stating that you are following our rules on that stuff. Okay, cool. Go ahead and put that inside. All right. Now close it up. Lock it up. All right. You can go put it back in your suitcase. The suitcase goes on top. They weigh it. They put the normal tag on it, but they also put a red tag on it. All right. Now, what's supposed to happen is you get to wherever you're going. It's not supposed to come out in that turnabout. All right, it's supposed to go to check baggage. You go there, you show them your ID, they confirm with the bag. All right, here you go, Mr. Gass. All right, at that point, you're outside the secured area. All right, and you go about your day. All right, you follow wherever you're at, Utah, it doesn't matter wherever you go. You're following their rules and their laws when it comes to possession, carrying a firearm. Now, when I went to Utah at that time, per the laws and rules and stuff, because I'm still in the airport. I go to the bathroom outside the secured area. All right, I go to the back stall. I'm very, 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 very fucking quietly. All right, put my holster on, load my gun, put that in my holster, cover it up, and I enjoy Utah for a couple of days. All right, before I come back to the airport, I already had it all staged up and ready to go in my bag before I even left the hotel and got in the shuttle. All right, get to the airport and do the same thing in reverse. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't as nerve-wracking as you might think, It didn't add much of any time at all to my trip. Has anyone ever gone and weighed their bag and stuff and flown with without having your baggage with you? Right? It's underneath the plane. It's the same as that process, except you just got to let them know about that one item. You got to sign, date that thing, and put it back in. That's what it added to my trip. So if you're nervous about the idea of doing it, if you think it's going to add a lot of time to your trip, you're like, I'm cutting it a little close and stuff. I don't know if I had a lot of time to deal with that. It doesn't add that much time at all. Seriously. No, you don't have to call ahead. Yep. You don't have to call ahead and say, hey, just so you know, I'm bringing a gun. Nothing like that. You don't have to, do a check-in process like whatever. Now, at times, things can change. In the future, that's not out of the realm of possibility that could, change. That could become the new norm. But over the last 7 years, my 2 different times of flying, that's been the process. Obviously, different airports can do things a little bit differently and stuff. And even with that being different and stuff, didn't sound like it added much, but maybe 20 minutes at the most to her experience. Always, like I said, double check what the TSA rules are, the airline's rules, and maybe also check that airport's rules and stuff. But it's really not that bad. It's nothing that I would be worried about. It's nothing that I would say should discourage you from carrying a firearm in that other state when you go there. Again, just know that what the laws are when you go to that state and what they say and what they don't say. I would not have a connecting flight anywhere in New York. All right? And this is like serious. I would not have a connecting flight anywhere in New York. If there's an emergency landing and you have to land in New York, shut your mouth. Don't let them know about the situation, that you have whatever you might have in the state of New York. All right? That was not your plan or intention. That was the weather, that was whatever. But know that if you're in violation of whatever their law might be, regarding whatever you might have, they will prosecute you. They don't give a shit that your plane had an emergency landing because of whatever. They will. It's been documented. It's been highly documented. They will prosecute your ass. Because what the DA said was, I don't make the laws. I just enforce them. And I enforce them against everybody. Right? Except for his, relatives and friends. Right? So, know that. And there's some other states too, obviously, that are like that too. Be very cautious if you go to some of those states, all right? Before you go somewhere, if you have a planned trip to go to somewhere, know what their laws are. Know what they can, know what you can and cannot do. Know if you are going to carry, does your permit allow you to carry there? Things of that nature. Know that before you go, all right? Good question. Any other good questions? Unrelated, but I have it on my mind right now, and I don't want to forget. I want to bring it up. It's not related to Maryland. Who wants to carry in Pennsylvania, right? this is what I would do. All right, this is what I highly recommend. And this is based on my experience and the experience of many of my clients. All right, so technically, you're supposed to have your home state permit yet first. So if you're not in a rush, wait until you're in Maryland and then do it. But I will tell you that through many people's experiences, York County, all right, where Harrisburg is kind of 20, 30 minutes from the border, all right, York County Sheriff's Office, because they do it by Sheriff's Office there, not by the state police or anything like that. York County Sheriff's Office don't give a shit if you have your home state permit, most of the time. I've never seen anybody have a problem. What you can do is you could, what is it, Sunday now? You could actually go up there tomorrow morning. You could fill out the application there. You could drop it off and say, hey, I'm gonna go get lunch. I'll be back later. You come back later, it's ready to go. All you gotta do is they take your picture, you sign for it, you pay $25 and you walk out the same day with your permit. Or you could email it or mail it to them and they'll call you as soon as it's done, usually that same day, maybe the next day that they receive it. And they'll say, hey, you're good. You got 30 days to come up here and pick it up. And again, when you go up there, $25, picture, sign for it, you got your permit. All right, I would highly recommend that. All right, had many people do that, good experiences. I will say I'm not an expert on PA law. I'm not an expert on Philadelphia. From what I understand, Philadelphia doesn't recognize anybody but their own permit in Pennsylvania. All right, so even if you have your York, you're not good in Philadelphia. I'll tell you what I know, and I'll tell you confidently. I also tell you what I don't know. All right, confidently, get your York. Pretty confidently, it's not going to be good in Philadelphia. Very confidently, don't ever go to Philadelphia. I fucking hate it. All right, unless you want to get beat up in a football stadium and go to jail in a football stadium. All right, don't go to Philadelphia. All right, where's my Philly fans? I don't care either way. I'm not that diehard of a Redskins fan or whatever you call them nowadays. Any other good questions?
About state parks, national forests,
So state parks, national forests. State parks, national forests, state parks, they can make their own rules. And then also like, let's say Shenandoah National Park, Skyline Drive and stuff, they follow state laws, all right? So in Virginia, because it extends, I think, down to Tennessee and whatnot, maybe even Kentucky all the way down. But when you're in the Virginia part of it, all right, Virginia, you can open carry a long gun or a pistol, no permit needed. Concealed carry a pistol with a permit, all right? And any permit is good in Virginia. But that's for national parks. National forests, I believe, it the same way. And then state parks, they can make their own rules. All right. I will say state rest areas in Maryland cannot carry there. Doesn't make sense. You're sleepy, you're tired. All right. You need to pull over so you don't freaking wreck and kill yourself or others. Well, you can't do that and go to a state rest area, the taxpayer-funded rest area. You have to go somewhere else. You have to go to like a sketchy McDonald's parking lot at 2 o'clock in the morning. All right? It doesn't make sense. All right? That's your politicians for you. All right? Now, I will say on that note, I do not push political parties at all, candidates at all. That's not why you're here. All right? What I do say is, guess what happens every November? Elections. All right? So regardless of who your politician is or what their party is or whoever, you can vote their ass out. You can vote their ass in. You can support who you want to support based on your ideals. Don't just get behind a keyboard and piss and moan. All right? Don't just sit in a class and piss and moan. All right? If you don't vote, you can't talk to me about politics and shit. I don't want to hear your shit if you don't get up at least on voting day and go fucking spend 10 minutes voting, whatever it might be. All right? Trust me, I hate a lot of this shit too and stuff. But if you haven't done your part to at least try to help us somewhat, all right, by at least voting, then shut your mouth. All right. Also, guess what happens every year? A legislative session. All right. And you're talking about state level. All right. The legislative session. Go up there. All right. You can go to Annapolis and you can voice your opinion to the politicians when they're considering these different bills, which I think they're going to be having a lot here in Maryland this coming spring. All right. Go up there, piss and moan. Let them know what you support, what you don't support. I don't even live in Maryland anymore. I'm not even a Maryland resident. Haven't been for 9 years. But guess what I'm at every year? In Annapolis, pissing and moaning about laws that do affect you, but also they do affect me too. All right? Even though I'm not a Maryland resident, trust me, I'm a Maryland taxpayer. I pay more taxes in Maryland than I do Virginia. And I'm a Virginia business and a Virginia resident. All right? I go to Maryland, I go to Annapolis every year and piss and moan, mostly about gun laws, but also about taxes too and other things. All right? You have that same availability. You can go up there, you can sign up to talk on different bills. You don't have to talk on every bill. You can talk on one bill here, you can talk on another bill there. You don't have to support everything. You can talk about bills you support and bills you don't support. All right? that is, it's pretty cool to be able to go up there and do that and be able to, like, even though they don't listen entirely, it's nice to be able to, like, provide them with information to be able to break through their ignorance. Whether they absorb it or not is up to them. Like, we had, when we were up there and stuff one time, a politician was like, talking about whatever when it came to guns, and he's like, well, it's not like you can own a bazooka in Maryland. We're like, actually, you can. He was like, no. And that kind of took his whole wind out of his sails. We were trying to get changed where DC actually has this, where with DC, you can actually apply for and get approved for your carry permit and not even have your training. All right. Now, once you're approved, they're not going to give you your permit until you give your training documentation. But you can actually apply for your DC and not even have your training even started or done yet. All right. We're trying to get Maryland to try to do the same thing. And one of the Maryland politicians, they were like, "What? What? You want us to pass a bill where people can get their carry permit and not have training? What?" Like, no. What we're wanting you to do is be able to accept and process applications so people can know whether they're approved or not, and then they go out and get their training. They don't receive the permit at all until they've provided their training documentation to the state. So it's not changing really anything, it's just changing the order in which people have to do things. And like, what? Well then, if we do that, the people that were going to get denied, they're going to lose, they're not going to get the training, and that's going to be money to the state, because state police are not going to have doing their training. Well, state police doesn't do the training in the first place. They were just kept on thinking about money and this and that, and they're just like, lady, no, that's not what we're saying. Listen to what we're saying. You're putting words into this bill that's not there. You're putting words into our mouth that didn't come out. So it's very eye-opening to know. And this is, by the way, this happens for both parties too. I'm not talking about any parties. I haven't said a party name at all, or any politicians. So I want to be kind of open about that and clear. What other good questions might you have? Yes, sir. So you can't carry the rest area. Like if you say you're on 95 and stuff, and state rest area coming up 1 mile, and you pull off and stuff, and they got the bathrooms and vending machines and stuff like that. You can't go there. You can't even be in the parking lot of those state rest areas. Doesn't make sense. It's not taxpayer friendly, all right? But that's the state. Yep. Essentially, think of it as a post office. Not exactly, but think of it as a post office. You can't even have it on the ground, loaded or unloaded. It's dumb. It doesn't make sense. That's something you can propose a bill to change that law, to repeal that part of the law. All right? Seriously. You can propose laws and stuff and ideas of these laws to your politicians, and they can say, oh, yeah, that sounds like really good. Like, I'll sponsor that. Let's write that. Let's draw that up, and let's propose that, and let's try to get that to be a law. That's how this shit happens. So if you don't like that, I don't like that. I've never met anyone that says, that makes sense. That makes sense a lot. I've never met anyone that said that. So, hey, if you don't like that, I don't like it either. I would like to have our politicians change that, to repeal that part of the law. It doesn't make sense. All right? And I will say, I'm not going to get into it too much, but gun-free zones as a whole, to me, personally, don't make sense, because it doesn't stop anybody. All right? What is stopping anybody from going to a state rest area right now and shooting the entire place up? Not a damn thing. No law stopping that. All that's stopping is you. That is literally, all that is stopping is you, 2 o'clock in the morning, sleepy as shit, been driving for like 6 hours. That's only just stopping you from safely pulling over and getting some rest at that area. That's all that's doing. That's not stopping from somebody any time of day going in there and shooting the place up with their firearm, open or concealed. It doesn't stop that. All right? I went to, I took my wife for her birthday right when the shit started popping off in like March of 2020, before they did all the lockdowns and stuff. We went to, it was her and her sister-in-law's birthday, so it was all her, them two and my brother-in-law. We went to Baltimore, got dinner, then we went to the Hippodrome. It's like Broadway, but the Baltimore version, so it's not like Broadway. They have a very strict policy against firearms. Like, even if somebody were to be off-duty law enforcement, they don't even want them carrying there. Unless they're there on duty for a call, you're not wanting to have a firearm there. Well, get there, show's about to start. We get there a little late and stuff. Show's about to start. They show my tickets. We walk through the metal detectors. Beep, beep, beep. They wanted me. Beep, beep, beep. Have a nice day, sir. Enjoy that show. And walked right in there carrying my Glock 43 concealed carry. All right? They don't get paid enough to care. Those guys getting paid $13, $14 an hour. That's not enough for them to ask me, is that your Glock? Or are you happy to see me? All right? They don't get paid enough. All right? And someone carrying in there, whether a decent, good-hearted person with good intentions and or maliciously, their no gun policy didn't stop shit that night. Doesn't stop shit anytime. All right? It doesn't. All right? If you guys have any questions at any point in time, feel free to ask. Honestly. If you've got a question about something, someone else in the room probably has that same question. So you're not only helping yourself out, but you're helping other people out too. Whether it's because maybe it was in the video, but you forgot about it, and or I didn't explain it maybe in the best terms that clicked with you, and or I just talk too damn fast sometimes, and my accent kind of gets in the way. Yes, ma'am. What video? So prior to the training, in the emails you got from us, there was links in there for different videos to watch prior to the class, and also tests and whatnot. So. No worries. So if you hadn't yet completed that, you can get that completed after the class too, especially make sure you do the test. Who watched the videos but possibly didn't see the test? It happens, all right? So if you haven't yet completed those tests, it's not the end of the world. Complete that after the training and whatnot. We need those tests completed prior to us being able to send the documentation to you, all right? But when it comes to that, we're going to go ahead. What we're going to do is throughout the day, we're going to mix in the hands-on stuff as well as the discussion sections. And we're going to start with that right now. So with that, Maryland law, all right, y'all watch the videos. With Maryland law, what questions do you have regarding what you can or cannot do legally in Maryland with your firearm, whether carrying or otherwise? What kind of questions do you have? And if you don't have questions, I'll have questions for you. Yes?
Just general questions about transporting.
Yep. Right. So,
Or if you're not even intending to go somewhere, you can't carry it, you're not comfortable carrying it on your hip just yet, you leave it locked.
right. So questions on transportation. And what I'll do is, first off, by starting and explaining transportation itself and not having your carry permit. And then I'll move into what changes when you have your carry permit. So, transporting your firearm, all right? Transporting your firearm. You can only transport, all right? We're going to break down separately transport versus carry. You can only transport your firearm when you're going to or from somewhere that you're going to be using it. Long story short, like you're going to or from the gun shop, you bought it, and or you're going to sell it, getting it worked on. You're going hunting, coming to or from, going to like a class here today. You're going to the range just on your own to fire it, whatever it might be, all right? So if you brought your firearm here today, you go home, but you forget it in your vehicle by mistake. And then you go out tomorrow doing whatever you're doing, and you get pulled over. You get pulled over and you say, hey, just so you know, I have a firearm in the vehicle. All right, well, where are you coming from, or where are you headed to? Well, I had it in the vehicle from yesterday. I went to the range yesterday, and I left it in the vehicle. I forgot it by mistake. All right, you can get hit for illegal transportation of a firearm. All right, and also, if you are a designated firearms collector, which is not hard to do, it's a simple form. You can find it on the Maryland State Police website. You can find it on our website. Regardless, you got to print that out, fill it out, sign it in front of a notary, get it notarized, and you mail it to the state police. And usually it takes right now about 3 to 4 days for it to get back to you. But once you become a designated firearms collector, you can also transport your firearm for the purposes of public or private exhibition. So what I mean by that is, again, you say you leave the gun shop and you're headed home. Perfectly fine, perfectly legal. All right, but you stop by your buddy's house. You're real excited about your new firearm. They were looking at potentially buying that same one. You want to stop by there and show them that, and then you do that. You leave your buddy's house and you head home. All right. If you're not a designated firearms collector, that's illegal. If you are a designated firearms collector, what you can articulate with your lawyer in hand is that you left a private exhibition of your firearms. You were privately exhibiting your firearms, whether one or the entire collection. It doesn't matter. All right. Also, a designated firearms collector, you can buy more than one handgun in a 30-day period. Currently, you go and buy one handgun in a 30-day period. But if you are a designated firearms collector, you can buy 3 today, 4 tomorrow. Now, you still have that 7-day waiting period regardless, but you can buy more than one in a 30-day period. All right. Now carrying a firearm. All right. Let's say you get your Maryland handgun permit, which looks like this right here. All right. You get your Maryland handgun permit. All right. that allows you to wear, carry, or transport. So with this, if you have your carry permit, now you don't have to be going to or from a certain place. All right, I can carry it, and this is, I don't know why you would want to, but you can carry it unloaded if you wanted to, or loaded. All right, but you can carry it loaded or unloaded, round the chamber or not. You can carry it whether you're going to a class, hunting, that. You can carry it whether you're going that, or you're going out to dinner with the family, or you're going to the movie theater, or you're going to church, anything like that. It doesn't matter. Once you have that carry permit, that takes that away. All right. Now there's still times and or places that you cannot carry. What's one example of something that's in every town that you cannot carry in? Post office. Why can't you carry in a post office? All right. It's a federal facility, even if you own the damn building. All right. Because a lot of commercial buildings are owned by private citizens, but they rent them out to the federal government for the use of a post office or a recruiting station for the military and whatnot. All right, it doesn't even matter if you own the place. If you rent or lease it to the federal government and or it's where federal employees are rarely present for the commission of their duties, that is a federal facility, you cannot carry there. All right, and that usually, generally speaking, includes the parking lot too. So be clear about that. You couldn't just leave the firearm secured whichever way you so chose and have it in your vehicle in the parking lot of that federal facility. All right. So when you have your carry permit, the gun could be on you. It could be off of you. It could be in the center console. It could be in the glove box. It could be in a safe that you bolted down underneath the back seat. If you have your carry permit, it doesn't have to necessarily be on you and doesn't have to necessarily be loaded, technically. Although, again, I don't know why you would transport an unloaded gun. But it can be, it doesn't have to be on your person. You know, it could be in a laptop bag on the passenger seat, which I wouldn't recommend. You know, when you have that carry permit, there's a lot of things that, when you have a carry permit, there's not a lot that you can't do in Maryland. All right, I'll give credit where it's due. Like, Maryland's not the most gun-friendly state. All right, it is not the easiest place in general to exercise your rights. But when it comes to your carry permit, I'd rather have a carry permit and be carrying in Maryland than have a carry permit and carry in, let's say, what is viewed as being a pro-gun state, like Texas, you know, and or even like Virginia to a certain extent. And I'll explain why. So, like in Maryland, can you carry in a school? So I heard somebody get on it. So I worded it very vague. All right, you can carry in a school if it is a private school. Maryland law explicitly says you cannot carry in a public school, but it doesn't say anything about private schools. Now, like I live in Virginia, my kids go to private school in Virginia. Per Virginia law, I can't carry at my kids' private school in Virginia. All right, even though Virginia is viewed as being a pro-gun state, in some ways, it's more difficult to exercise some of your rights than it is even here in Maryland. In Maryland, can you carry in a hospital? Yes. You can. All right. Can I carry in a bar or restaurant where alcohol is served? I can. All right. Now, can I drink? Yes, I technically can. Now, I want to be clear. Throughout the day, I'll tell you what the law is and also what my opinion is. Nothing in the law says you cannot carry in a bar or restaurant where alcohol is served. Nothing in Maryland's law says you cannot carry and consume alcohol. Not endorsing, I'm saying it's a great idea, but it doesn't say you cannot carry while consuming alcohol. What it does say, right, is you cannot carry while intoxicated. Now, with driving, what do we know the legal limit to be when it comes to alcohol and driving? 0.08. Now, if you blow 0.07, are you still intoxicated? You are, but you're below the legal limit. The legal limit. So it limits you on how much you can drink while driving, all right? But it doesn't say you cannot. You can just like that. You can drink, consume alcohol and then drive, all right? But you cannot blow 0.08 or above or fail a field sobriety test, all right? Now with firearms, there's no set. All right, this is the legal limit. It simply says you cannot carry while intoxicated, all right? Has anyone ever had one beer? Maybe you've been working out in the yard all day, you're sweating your ass off, and then you have one beer, whatever it might be, and all of a sudden you feel something. I didn't say it was a lot, but you ever felt at least some type of effect from that one beer? All right? That is a level of intoxication. Didn't say it was highly intoxicated. I'm not saying you're stumbling drunk, but you are to some extent, it's debatable, but you are to an extent intoxicated. All right? Now, one example I like to show is like, let's say I'm carrying my gun, all right? Openly, it's obvious as shit. I have my beer in my hand, all right? I cracked it open. It's nice. I haven't even drank from it, but it's open, all right? And while I'm sitting there walking around with my beer in my hand, all right, not actually drinking, just have an open beer in my hand, have my gun on me, all right, a law enforcement officer sees that. And they're watching, and they're listening. And they maybe see me stumble over my feet a little bit. Or they hear me, what it sounds like maybe, and themselves, me slur a possible word, all right? Maybe I wasn't actually slurring a word, maybe it's just my accent, all right? But what they saw, what they heard, can be used to articulate that I was under the influence while carrying a firearm. Even though it's completely wrong. Again, context matters. I didn't drink it all. I have a beer in my hand, it's open, but I actually didn't drink it all. But based on what they saw and what they heard, that leads them to believe, whether incorrect or otherwise, that I'm intoxicated while carrying a firearm, all right? And you will go to jail quick, all right? So long story short, is it legal? Yes. Is it frowned upon? Yes. Is it recommended that you mix the two? No. All right? Now, yeah.
Now, this is Maryland only, right?
Yes. Yes. I want to make clear, I'm keeping the focus to Maryland. Yep. Yeah, I want to be clear. I'm keeping the focus to Maryland because I don't want to bring in other states and say, well, this state says this state says that. I don't want to confuse you. All right, so we're going to keep it focused mostly all to Maryland stuff. Later we'll talk about DC, all right, but we'll keep that completely separate as possible to, again, alleviate the possibility of you confusing one and the other. All right, yeah, different states say different things, all right? All right, when you are in whatever particular state you're in, you follow their rules and their laws. Even if you're carrying with a permit from a different state, all right, the Maryland permit, is it recognized? Can you carry in, let's say, Virginia with your Maryland permit? You can. All right, as of July 1, 2017, I believe it is. July 1, 2017, they recognize, I think it might actually be 16, they recognize any and all permits from throughout the United States, county or state, doesn't matter. So your Maryland permit is good in Virginia, but just because that is the permit you're using to carry there, doesn't matter. You don't follow Maryland laws with your Maryland permit while carrying in Virginia. You follow whatever state laws that state has regarding anything. Just like driving. Some states might say, hey, you can use a radar detector. Like in Maryland, all right, it's not illegal to use a radar detector. But if you take that shit into Virginia and they catch your ass, are they going to get you? They're going to get you. Why? Because Virginia law says it's illegal. So while you still have a Maryland license and stuff, you still have to follow their laws when you're on the roads. Same thing when it comes to this, all right? If you have a Maryland permit and you're using that to carry in Virginia, you follow their rules, their laws when it comes to what you can and cannot do with a firearm in Virginia. All right? So again, I don't want to confuse you too much. I'm not going to bring up Virginia too much or DC too much, at least not right now. I want to keep the focus to Maryland. All right? Any other good questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea how many states will recognize Maryland's permit?
So there's a list in your student packet. All right? Now, I will say it's not completely accurate. There's one state that I know for a fact that's missing. All right? Because this was printed before that. One state that's not on this list that actually is, though, in real life, is South Carolina. South Carolina changed their policy regarding that in March, maybe April. So those states listed there, as well as South Carolina, recognize your Maryland carry permit. Now, that list could increase, it can decrease. All right? What's accurate today doesn't mean it's accurate tomorrow. All right? So, but that gives you a guideline of what is recognized right now. Again, all those states plus South Carolina. All right? That was a big thing because South Carolina, until they made that change, there was nothing that you could get as a Maryland permit that allowed you to carry there. Because in order to get, they didn't recognize the Maryland, and they only recognized a certain amount of permits, and they only recognized a resident version. All right? So now, as a Maryland resident, you can now carry when you go down to, say, Myrtle Beach or whatnot. All right? With that, with reciprocity, that's what we're kind of talking about on this topic. What I would recommend is this, and there's other apps that can do it too, but what I use all the time, pull out your phone, go to the App Store, and the app that I use, let me just make sure I know exactly what it's called, 50 state. So it's called CCW, Concealed Carry 50 State. It's like $1.99, and each year after that it's like $1. But that app, why I'm bringing that up, is if you download that, and in the bottom left-hand corner it says My Permits, and it pulls up a page that has a list of every permit you could possibly get. And it deviates also, reflects both resident and non-resident version too, because that can change things as well. But you put in there the permits you have, or let's say you have no permits at all. Yes, ma'am. Let's say you have no permits at all, and you're trying to decide, hey, I got this whole package. So it comes with Maryland, DC, Virginia, Florida, Utah, Arizona, but do I really need to apply for all those? You can put in there the different permits, and you can figure out, well, if I got this one, where is that good at? If I got this one, where is that good at? If I get the combination of these three, where is that good at? Because people's needs of, where they travel to and where they carry to or where they want to carry to, that's different person by person. Like myself, any state that I go to for the most part touches the Atlantic, from Pennsylvania down to Florida. I don't really leave that zone too much. I have very seldom, only like twice. One time I went to Tennessee, another time I went to Utah. Other than that, I haven't left the East Coast really at all. Actually, I lied. Third time I went to Texas. But you can see on there where your permits are good at and where they're not. And not only that, but you can click on the state. It shows you a whole map, and you can see, say you're good in Texas. You can click on Texas, and it'll pull up their laws and stuff and show you what you can and cannot do while you're there. A lot of times it actually take you right to the Department of Public Safety page or wherever it might be, a state police page where it has the information on what you can and cannot do while you're in that state. It's a pretty decent app, especially if you travel a lot.
So DC you can't carry?
Right. So Maryland, how many states does Maryland recognize? Not that recognize Maryland. How many states does Maryland recognize? Not a single one. Right. DC's the same way. DC only recognizes their own. So if you want to carry in Maryland, what permit do you got to get? If you want to carry in DC, which permit do you got to get? If you want to carry in Virginia, what do you got to get? Any. All right, so if you want to carry, say you want to carry in the DMV. What's that?
Virginia changed it just to Virginia.
Nope, no, they didn't. No. So back in the end of 2015, Virginia went from recognizing 27 states down to like 4. And then the next month, the legislature passed a law, not the next month, but like 2 months later, the legislature passed a law that went into effect that July 1 that said, nope, now if you have a permit from anywhere in the United States, you're good in Virginia. That's in Virginia law. That's not in policy. That's not in the state police, procedures. That is in Virginia law. So as of July 1, 2016, I believe it is, you can carry in Virginia with any permit from any state. Now also, that's somewhat concealed. In Virginia, you can open carry without a permit at all. Who doesn't have a permit at all? You can take your gun, put it on your hip after you get into Virginia. Go, say, get on 301, drive into Virginia. Once you get into Virginia, pull over, load, put it in your holster, you're good to go. You can open carry that handgun or a rifle or a shotgun. Now, we'll say one of the quirks of Virginia, I'm not going to try to blend them too much, but in Virginia, you cannot open carry with a magazine that holds more than 20 rounds. All right? But I'm going to let that topic now die because I don't want to talk about Virginia too much. I don't want to confuse you all too much. So let's get back to Maryland, all right? What's the largest magazine that you can own in Maryland? Trick question. You can own whatever the hell you want. You just cannot buy them, sell them. So magazines that hold like 11 or more. Magazines that hold 11 or more, you cannot buy them, sell them, transfer them, give them away for Christmas gifts, or manufacture them. But if you read the law, it does not say anything about possession, ownership, use, carrying with, shoot with. It doesn't say anything about that. It says manufacture, sale, offer for sale even. So that's another thing too. I can't even offer for sale. So let's say I don't, but let's say I own a gun shop and stuff. I can't be sitting here saying, yeah, go to my gun shop in Virginia and you can buy these magazines. I can't even make that offer for sale while in Maryland. Where does Maryland law limit your abilities? Does it limit what you can do when you're in Alaska? Does it limit what you can do when you're in California? Does Maryland law limit what you can do when you're in Maine or Virginia? It doesn't. Maryland law restricts what you can and cannot do, or bans what you can do in Maryland. All right? So again, Maryland law does not say you cannot go to Virginia, buy them, and bring them back. All right? Yes, sir.
Question. So Oklahoma is covered under Maryland. So can I fly, put the gun in my check baggage, and then carry it in Oklahoma?
So flying, more or less, let's talk about it that way. Flying with a gun and going to another state, right? If another state recognizes your permit, you can carry while you're there. Now, say you have a direct flight from somewhere in Maryland to somewhere in Oklahoma. All right, how that generally goes is this, and this is subject to change, but this is how it was the 2 times I flew with a firearm. I flew once to Texas, once to Utah. All right, the gun is in a double-sided hard case. All right, the gun itself is empty. No magazine inserted, no round in the chamber. The magazines themselves can be in the same case, but they also are empty. And then the ammunition needs to be in the original packaging. All All right, so when I flew both times, more or less what you saw is I opened up a double-sided hard case. I've got a gun in there, slide lock to the rear, 3 magazines, and a box of 50 rounds. All right, I take that, I close that up, I put my lock on that, I put it in my suitcase. All right, I roll into the airport. I go up to the checked baggage area where they weigh your bag, they put a little tag on it, they put it in the back, and it goes underneath the plane. When you get to that part, all right, you get up to them and stuff, you let them know, I have an item to declare. Don't walk into no damn airport saying, I got a gun, or anything even close to that. Like, I wouldn't even use the term gun, firearm, handgun. Just say, I have an item to declare. They'll say, okay, what is it? I undo my suitcase, pull that case out, put it on top of the counter right there, undo the lock, turn it towards them, open it up just towards them, and just, if anything, you don't have to even say anything. Obviously, they can see, but hey, it's a firearm, All right, and then a lot of times it's not their first, rodeo. So, all right, go ahead and sign this and date this and stuff, just saying that you're following all the airlines rules and TSA airlines rules. Put that in there, close it up, lock it back up, put it in my suitcase. They weigh it. They put a tag on the outside. They usually do, but they also put a red tag on the outside. Red tag on the outside. It goes underneath the plane, and then your rest of your flight, everything like that is normal. All right, you get to wherever you're going, stuff. You never had access to that firearm or that case is underneath the plane. When you get to the airport, let's say in Oklahoma, all right, it's not supposed to come out in the turnabout. It's not supposed to. So it's good to check baggage where you go and show them your ID. They verify. Oh, here you go, sir. All right, you take your firearm and whatnot. You take your bag and stuff. You do what you got to do. You're in Oklahoma and stuff. And at that point, you're outside the secured area. So like when I went to Utah and stuff, I took that bag. I went to the this per Utah law too at the time. But I went to the bathroom and stuff, which is outside the secured area. I went in the back stall and stuff, very quietly, very silently, put my holster on, loaded my gun, put that in there, covered it up, walked on out, did my whole thing in Utah and stuff. And then I did the same thing in reverse to come back to Maryland. All right? You have to follow both TSA rules as well as the airlines itself rules. What I like to do is I've only had to do this a few times, but when I do travel with a firearm like that, I'll go on and I'll find their rules on their website. Again, both TSA and the airline. And not only that, and make sure that I know where their rules are and I follow them, but also I print them off.
That's not in this app, the TSA rules.
No, the TSA rules are not going to be in the app, I don't think. They might be, but I don't know they are. I print those off, and I have them with me, like on my person, because it's not uncommon. I wouldn't say it's common, though, but it's not uncommon for you to stumble upon a TSA employee and or airline employee that doesn't know what the rules are, and they try enforcing rules that don't exist on you. You can't travel with a firearm. You can't have the ammunition in that case with the gun. You can't, whatever it might be and stuff, and simply ask for a supervisor. It's not a measuring contest. It's not a debate. Ask for a supervisor, have them come out, and they can more or less, a lot of times the supervisor's going to know, and they'll be able to correct that person and train them up on what actually is the reality of it. But I will say that again, the 2 times I tried with a firearm, had no problems. It didn't add really much time at all to my process. It wasn't like, I had to get there 3 hours early to do all this stuff. It wasn't that big of a headache, I promise you. Can it be? Is there like those one-off things? Yes. Just like when you get pulled over by law enforcement. Most times it's the same normal shit. But sometimes you get those overzealous and whatever people. So it's not something that I would be worried about. And it's something that I would, if you want to carry wherever you're going stuff, you want to fly with it, it's not that big of a deal. I would definitely recommend doing it. So, any other good questions?
Pertaining to the magazines, when you say we get our carry permit here in Maryland, I know you can own some, but they say no more than 10 rounds or something like that. I don't know if that applies to your actual carry pistol.
Right.
So my question is basically how many and then
right.
If I have a spare mag, what's the maximum?
Right. So again, Maryland law, magazine capacity. All right. You can own whatever you want. You can carry whatever you want. You can shoot with whatever you want. You can possess whatever you want. All right. Things you cannot do is buy, sell, transfer, manufacture those magazines. So, like it's unloaded now and stuff because we're in a classroom setting. But when I carry, I carry this Glock 17, which happens to be the magazine capacity for that standard is 17. So you'll see if I'm carrying and whatnot outside of the classroom, 17 plus 1 in the chamber, 18 in my gun itself. and then I usually have 2 extra magazines of 17 with me as well. All right, perfectly fine, perfectly legal. Can I also, dumb down myself and get a 10-round magazine for my firearm and just carry that? I could if I wanted to as well. But there's nothing in Maryland law that limits you carrying a firearm with a magazine capacity that's more than 10 rounds. All right?
There's no limit at all, like in Virginia where.
Right.
We won't get into that, but basically where they limit that.
Yeah. No, you can open or conceal carry a rifle, pistol, or shotgun with a magazine that holds whatever size.
Can you order them online?
So no. So his question was magazines over 10 rounds. Can you order them online? No, because that kind of plays into the transfer and/or sale and/or purchase while happening in Maryland. Now, if you were to happen to have a relative that lived in Virginia, they bought them, they got them shipped to their house, and when you happen to be there for whatever visit, all right, you happen to get those and you bring them from Virginia now into Maryland. The transfer happened in Virginia, all right? You brought them into Maryland. That's perfectly fine, but you cannot buy them and have them sent to your house here in Maryland. Does that make sense? All right, and again, also too, if you are, let's say you buy them from Palmetto State Armory and stuff, if they see that you're, even if you're getting them shipped to your relative's house in Virginia and stuff, they're going to see the billing address being Maryland. They're going to void that sale out. So just so you know about that as well. Yes.
Is there a minimum size firearm that you can carry?
Minimum, no, there's no requirement on what firearm you carry, what size, the capacity, anything like that. As long as the handgun is legal in Maryland, you're allowed to carry that handgun in Maryland. All right, so technically, is anyone anyone familiar with what an AR-15 pistol is? All right, there's nothing in Maryland law that says you couldn't carry an AR-15 pistol. All right, it's a handgun. Eventually you're going to, if you don't already have it, you're going to have a Maryland permit to carry a handgun. It doesn't say what we typically think as being handguns. It doesn't say only semi-automatic. It doesn't say only revolvers. It doesn't say ones that hold at least 3 rounds or one that holds less than 10 rounds. Right? As long as the handgun's legal in Maryland, you can carry that handgun in Maryland. Yes. Yeah, so like not so much. There's like a list of firearms. There is a list of firearms. I don't have it offhand, but there is a list of firearms that Maryland has banned, especially under their assault weapons ban and whatnot. If it's been banned in Maryland and you get caught with that, whether you're carrying it or shooting with it and whatnot, you're going to catch a charge.
Well,
Right.
I know I live in Pennsylvania, so I can buy whatever I want. I know there's certain models and stuff that aren't allowed in Maryland. Is that going to be a problem?
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
And that's available on the state police website.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. Any other good questions? Yes.
What's your duty to inform law enforcement?
All right, so let's talk about law enforcement. All right, dealing with law enforcement. In Maryland, you have no legal duty to notify them. You have no duty to notify law enforcement you are carrying a firearm. All right, whether you let them know or not, that's a personal decision. All right. Now, personally, I used to be of the mindset where, hey, if I deal with law enforcement, I'm going to let them know. And most of the time when I deal with law enforcement myself, it's, a traffic stop. I speed a little bit more than I probably should. And what I used to do, all right, they roll up to the vehicle before they actually physically walk up to my vehicle. I already have my permit out and my driver's license behind that, and I hand that to them. And no words need to be said, but I can if I wanted to. But no words need to be said. They can look at that and they can, honestly, 9 times out of 10 in Maryland, they've never seen one before. All right, now it's going to be changing. But if you show me a handgun permit, 9 times out of 10, they probably have never seen one before. And they might even say, oh, okay, I see you have your HQL. Obviously not the same thing. And I would say, no, that's my handgun permit. That actually allows me to carry a handgun. I'm actually exercising that at this point in time. All right? They didn't walk up and I said, hey, just so you know, I got a gun. Because then they're going to be like, I fucking do too. So, again, generally speaking, there's I would say that's not a right or a wrong way. There's not a legal or illegal way to let them know. But there's a smart way, there's a dumb way. All right? Generally speaking, try to stay away from those, I hate to say this in 2022, but stay away from those trigger words, gun, firearms, handgun, whatever. Try to stay away from using those. And if you do use them, try to use them as least aggressively or as possible, right? Hey, just so you know, that is my, permit to carry. That allows me to carry. I'm exercising that at this point in time, all right? you'll find out throughout the day and stuff, I'm very big on words matter. The words you choose matter. The words that our politicians they use in law matter. Words matter. Not only words matter, but also how you present those words matter, right? So again, just so you know, I have my permit to carry. It allows me to carry that item on me. All right, and I am exercising that at this point in time. All right. Again, how they respond might be a little bit different based on their experience, based on the lack of experience, their knowledge. I am not throughout the day. I'll talk obviously different stuff when it comes to law enforcement. We're going to be doing a lot of that here right now. I'm not a blind supporter of law enforcement, but I'm also not blindly critical either and stuff. I just treat them like any other person and stuff. They do a thankless job, absolutely, but they also fuck up at times. Right? They also don't know everything, just like in any industry. Does anybody know everything about their industry right this moment? All right. I like to think that I do, but I know that I really don't. All right. I know a lot. I'm very knowledgeable, I feel like, but there's a lot of things I don't know. I learn stuff all the time. All right. There are a lot of law enforcement in Maryland that don't know what is legal or what is not when it comes to firearms. All right? There's a lot of cops in Maryland that do not know what a Maryland carry permit is, or that there is a Maryland carry permit, or that allows you to open and or conceal carry. All right? Be understanding of that. When they pull you over and stuff, understand that they may not know what you are doing and that what you're doing is legal. All right. Now, hopefully they take it slow and they are humble enough to look into things instead of overreact. And most of the time, in my experience, they are. But you might get that over-aggressive 25-year veteran on the force that has no idea what you are doing is legal, and they react with you the same way they have done in the past with someone who is illegally carrying and possibly trying to be violent with them. All right. So try to take things slow. Also. They might, when you show them, if you were to show them your permit and stuff, and you were to let them know, they might say, all right, no problem. For the duration of stop, for your safety and for mine, do you mind if I go ahead and get that firearm off you? They might say something like that, some variation of that, all right? And if you're, first off, I want to be clear, that would be a request. That's not a lawful order, all right, per Maryland law at least, all right? There's a difference between request and lawful orders, all right? Just like if they want to, they can come here, all right, and they can either have a warrant to search this place, they can have probable cause of a crime having been committed, search this place, and or they can have your consent. A lot of times if they're asking for your consent to do whatever, to hold on that fine duration, that stop, whatever it might be, if they're asking for your consent, it's probably because they don't have a warrant and or probable cause. So whether you comply with that request, that is up to you as an individual and a grown-ass adult. Is anybody in here not a grown-ass adult? I'm trying to see if there are any kids in here. All right, cool. No. All right, y'all are grown-ass adults. All right. Now, if they were to say that and you say, hey, that's fine. I don't mind. There is no need for you to handle that firearm. All right, I'm in my vehicle and stuff. Let's say they're on my driver's side over here. I got my hands on the steering wheel. All right. Don't be very conscious too of where your hands are. All right, and what you're doing with them. Just be very conscious of that. Hands on the vehicle, on the steering wheel. They say, hey, do you mind holding that firearm for duration of stop for your safety and for mine? You might say, yeah, I don't mind, but do not handle that firearm. Them holding on that firearm for duration of stop for your safety and for theirs doesn't mean that you have to hand them your firearm. All right? Multiple things. All right? One, you're a grown-ass adult. You can have a conversation with that other grown-ass adult that pulled you over. All right? Whatever they say doesn't have to go exactly that way. All right? So what I'm trying to get at is this. Yeah, I don't mind if you hold this firearm, but I'm not going to. I wouldn't even say I don't feel comfortable. Just say, I'm not going to hand this firearm to you. If you'd like, if you want, you can go and open the door. I'll put my hands on the vehicle, all right? And you can take that firearm off of me, all right? But there's no need for you to actually handle that firearm, all right? And why I'm saying that is it's not that they're bad people. It's not that they're trying to set you up. It's not that they're trying to get you, all right? But you can't control what you can't control. You don't know you maybe don't know exactly what's going on. While they say, hey, do you mind if I hold on that firearm for duration and stop for your safety for mine? You're like, oh, yeah, that's fine. Do you mind if I go ahead and reach for it now? And you're like, oh, yeah, go ahead. And whether you're fast or slow, all right, you take that firearm, go like this, you're not pointing at them or yourself, all right? Well, guess what? While you're doing that, dealing with them, you don't realize, and maybe they didn't think about it, but you don't realize that on the other side of the vehicle, behind the passenger seat, all right, there's another cop that's watching their back. They're either getting trained by this person or this person's getting trained by them, all right? And they don't hear what they told you. They don't hear them say, all right, if you mind, go ahead and name that firearm for duration stop for your safety and for mine. They don't hear that because even though they're right there, road noise and whatnot, or they're distracted by the radio, whatever it might be, and all they do is they look down, they see you start grabbing for your gun, fast or slow, and start bringing it towards their partner. All right, do you think you might get shot? All right, do you think that they may very well shoot first, ask questions later? All right, there's a perception there. It's a misperception, but it's a perception nonetheless. And it's a perception that's going to possibly lead to you getting shot. All right, again, they didn't do that maliciously. Maybe they didn't think about that. They overlooked that and stuff. They didn't say, hey, real quick, do you mind go ahead and give me that firearm for duration stop for your safety for mine? Okay, cool. Hey, real quick, Bobby, he's going to hand me his firearm. Don't shoot him in the fucking back. They're not going to probably think to say that and stuff. So be aware of that. Be conscious of stuff. There is if you wanted to comply with that, it might be, doing too much per se, but I'd rather be embarrassed and get in my vehicle and have my firearm taken off of me on the side of a major highway and be embarrassed in that manner, because it would be embarrassing, than mistakenly get shot. All right, mistakes happen. Everyone makes mistakes. All right, law enforcement makes mistakes, but I don't want their mistake to cost me my life on the side of the fucking road. All right. Again, it's a reasonable mistake. If I'm sitting on a traffic stop and I don't hear him hand you a firearm, again, I'm not law enforcement, don't claim to be, but if I was, all right, we all can think, what would you do in that situation? Well, if I didn't hear that person tell them to hand a firearm, and all I do is I see a firearm being drawn and slowly or fast brought to that officer, that doesn't look good. All right, I might accidentally shoot you based on that misperception. So again, how do we deal with that misperception? How do we alleviate that from happening? Well, there's nothing that says, even if they ask you to, there's nothing that says you actually have to handle that firearm. All right, if they take that firearm off of me and they say, all right, going back in your vehicle, all right, I do. They run it. What they're doing, they don't tell you this probably, but they're going to be running it, make sure it's not stolen. That's what they're doing. They're not really worried that you're going to shoot them, right, for the most part. They're just running it to see if it's stolen. All right? They come back to the vehicle and stuff, say, hey, everything's good and stuff, and they might try to hand you the firearm. I say, hey, no worries. Let me go ahead and let me actually get back out of the vehicle, and you can put it back in my holster for me. All right, cool, good. All right, cool. And get back in your vehicle. There's no reason at any point in time that you have to handle that firearm. All right? That's not smart. It doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, what your background is. They don't know that shit. They don't know that I have a clean background and that I own a firearms training company and that I'm a general supporter of law enforcement. They don't know any of that. It doesn't matter to them in that moment. In that moment, they're worried about doing their job and also making sure they get home safe. All right? So make sure that we are not providing opportunity for misperceptions in a situation like that. All right? But again, are you legally required to let law enforcement know that you are carrying a firearm? No. Now, if they ask, they may very well ask, is it good legal advice for me to tell you to lie to them if they ask? No. All right? If I think I can get away with it, I'll lie to them. I'm not telling you to, but if they ask me, hey, do you, maybe not so much lie, but mislead them possibly. And what I mean by that is, they might say, hey, just real quick, before we get started, do you have any weapons or contraband in the vehicle that I need to be worried about? I knew what they meant, but words matter. Is there any weapons or contraband in the vehicle that you need to be worried about? No. Okay, so I pulled you over for going 63 and a 55. Blah, 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 blah. Right? Now, if they come to my door and they're like searching all around before they even talk to me, they're looking all around and shit, and they're like, hey, real quick, Ryan, do you have any firearms in the vehicle I need to be worried about? All right? One, words matter. They said my name, right? So what does that mean? That means they already ran my tags before they came, and if they know about the system, all right, then they may have already checked to see if I had a permit connected to me. Now, on that topic, does law enforcement, when they pull you over, does it automatically say, boom, 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 this person has their HQL, boom, 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 this person has their carry permit, watch out, watch out. Does it say that shit? No, it doesn't, all right? Yeah, I can't say one way or the other, but I can say that I know that they can see it. But in Maryland, right? In Maryland, it is not connected directly to your driver's license or your vehicle. Although if they have your name, there is a resource available to them. They have to call and whatnot. It's called the Maryland Gun Center, and they can verify whether you have a carry permit, whether you have an HQL, whether you have firearms registered to you. All right? A lot of them in Maryland don't know that they have that resource available to them. They're not trained about that. They're not also trained on, hey, do that before you even get out of the vehicle. All right, now, could they know about that resource? Yes. Could they run your tag and find your name and then run you through that resource before they even get out of the vehicle? They could. Yes, they absolutely could. Do they? 9 times out of 10, no. All right? For example, a little bit different, but my vehicle, my truck's registered through the company itself. So they run my tags, it's going to say practical training professionals. All right? They have to do a lot of research to figure out, oh, Ryan Gass is the owner. He's probably driving. Let me run his name through. All right? 99% of the time, they are not running through that system before they come up to that vehicle. All right, so they have no idea. Now, if you have stickers on your vehicle and shit, they might lead them to believe one way or the other. If you got like IPAC, driver doesn't carry cash, but he carries a 45. Don't tread on me, whatever. That might lead them, to a reasonable conclusion, but it doesn't necessarily tell them one way or the other. All right. Again, if they come to the vehicle and I feel like they have an inkling that I'm carrying a firearm, I'm not going to fucking lie to them, right? Because that could be bad, right? But if they're just spouting off what they've been trained. Real quick, sir, man, before I get started with the stop, do you have any weapons contraband in the vehicle I need to worry about? No? Okay, so real quick, I pulled you over today because back there you're going da-da-da-da-da. All right, but they might, again, like I said earlier, they might come up and be like, looking all around, like, hey, sir, real quick, keep your hands where they are real quick. Do you have any weapons in the vehicle? Yes, actually, I do. I have one on my hip, one in my appendix carry, and 36 in the back. Oh. So, old trusted case. But again, you have no legal duty to notify them. All right. Again, other states might say differently. Other states I know do say differently. All right, but we're going to keep the focus to Maryland. All right. Any other good question when it comes to Maryland law, what you can and cannot do? Yes, ma'am.
Is it legal to lie to them and say no?
I don't have enough legal knowledge to know whether it's legal or not for you to lie to them. Her question was, is it legal for you to lie to them when it comes to that? I honestly would lean towards not legal, but I don't know one way or the other. I'm not a legal expert. Real quick, a little context. Gilbert is pretty well-known and pretty experienced, and I trust him, attorney out of Virginia, and he deals with also a lot of other cases outside of just Virginia. So if he provides information like that, I 100% lean towards his expertise and stuff. So if he answers stuff like that, know that that's coming from an experienced attorney that not only deals, it's not an experienced attorney, but also criminal defense attorney, and deals specifically, his main thing is firearms. All right, because who in here has ever been divorced? All right, who's ever gotten a DUI? It happens, right? Your DUI attorney, your divorce attorney, they might have done great, absolutely fucking great on that case for you. All right? Doesn't mean that they are best suited to do criminal defense or stuff related to firearms. They know anything related to firearms. They might dabble, all right, but I don't want somebody dabbling in my case that might end up with me in jail for 10, 15, 20 years, a lifetime sentence, a death penalty sentence. All right? Just like Ben Carson. Who's Ben Carson? He's a world-renowned brain surgeon, all right? But I don't know that I would hire him to fucking remove a hangnail from my foot, all right? Different strokes for different folks, different expertise and stuff. 100% would love to have him work on me and my kids, my family. It came to something related to our brains, all right? But it comes to other shit, I'm going to find a specialist in that field. Same thing. Doctors have different fields. Lawyers have different fields, all right? He is the go-to person in my book when it comes to Virginia specifically, but also in general when it comes to firearms. So a little context there. Yes.
Getting back to transportation. See, my gun's broke and going to the shoot range or something. And my wife is with me. She has a carry permit in all the other states, but not Maryland. But I do, but I have her gun. How would I treat her? Can I treat her, or do I got to do it that she can?
Generally speaking, you're going to want her to be the one transporting it.
Can I say the one that's that gun with me that day?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Can I say her gun is with me that day? Or?
If she's with you, I would, like, if it's registered to her, I would try to keep her with you with that firearm and or make sure the firearm stays with her. So I wouldn't, I try not to, does it happen? Yes. Try not to, if a gun's registered to somebody, make sure they're with you in that firearm and stuff. Don't try to intermingle that shit. Like, I'm not gonna let, generally speaking, my wife borrow my handgun for her to carry that. I'm gonna let her carry her own handgun. I'm not gonna let my buddies, borrow my firearms. If I'm right there with them in their immediate presence, we're out to the range shooting, that's one thing, but I'm not gonna load up all my guns into that truck and have my buddy drive it out to the range like that. I'm gonna make sure that I'm with them. All right, the gun has to be unloaded, separate from the ammunition, as separate as possible. If you're on a motorcycle with 2 saddlebags, well, separate as possible is gonna be ammunition in one saddlebag, gun in the other. If you're in a hatchback little Honda Civic and stuff, it's gonna be, essentially in the back trunk, which is really deliberately separated. You're gonna try to separate them as much as reasonably possible. All right, if I have a truck, what's up? Yeah, and like if I have a truck and whatnot, I'm gonna try to, it's kind of gets in that tight spot and stuff. I'm not gonna probably put like my guns or my ammunition more or less in the bed. I'm gonna probably try to keep them in the cab to keep them protected from the weather, that and thieves and whatnot. Say ammunition in the passenger floorboard, the gun either tucked behind the back seat or underneath the back seat, depending on how your seats fold up or down and whatnot. But you want to separate them as much as possible. All right, now when you're transporting too, the ammunition can be in the magazines. And again, we're not talking about airlines, we're just talking about driving. The ammunition can be in the magazines, but the magazines can't be with the gun at that point, right? So however the ammunition is, whether it's in the magazine, whether it's in the original packaging, the ammunition can't be with the gun itself. You want to have those separated as much as possible. Where the magazines are is irrelevant unless the magazines are loaded.
Yes, sir. Not necessarily a question, but just curious on your point of view and insight and experience with it. Because when you get the permit, most people are going to conceal carry, but you have that option of open carry.
Yep.
And I'm curious, what has been your experience, and have you open carried in Maryland, and what's the experience with law enforcement and other people when you run into that?
Good question. So this question was dealing with law enforcement and open carry, and how does that go? All right. I've been open carrying for probably, come up on like 7-8 years now. And that's how I predominantly carry. When I first started carrying, it was because I was working security and stuff, and we were getting paid, and we had to do it their way, and it was open carry most of the time. And then since then, obviously, I work for myself and whatnot. And I do open carry 99% of the time, just as you see me carry right now. All right, gun on my hip, outside the waistband, big bulky ass holster, Glock 17 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, all that good stuff. Context, because context always matters. Why do I open carry like that? Why does anybody know or think they know why I open carry in Maryland? Any idea? It's not that I think it looks cool. It's not that I think I'm going to scare away the bad guys. It's not that I want people to misperceive me as being law enforcement. I do think that sometimes people look at me and the way I dress, the way I talk, the way I carry myself, the fact that I carry a gun and the fact that I carry openly like I do and the holster that I do think that some people misperceive me as being law enforcement. That's not ever my goal, my intention, but I do believe that it's just a fact of the matter. It's an element of reality. But that's not all my goals, my intentions, all right? Simply put, I open carry like I do because it's advertisement, effective advertisement for the business in which I'm in. People see that, and I get different responses like, hey, I didn't know you could do that, or you can't do that, or hey, how can I do that? And that's where my business comes in. Hey, actually, I actually train people and help them get their carry permits too. Right now, it's not that hard at all. Most people are getting theirs within 4 weeks or so of applying. We have classes all throughout Maryland. We do fingerprints and photographs, blah, blah, blah. It is effective advertising for the business which I'm in. It's a conversation starter, all right? If I was a BMW dealer, I'm not gonna go driving around in some beat up V6 freaking Mustang. I'm gonna have a BMW. Not only the BMW, but a clean BMW. I wanna be able to get out of that vehicle and somebody says, man, that's a nice car, man. I'm like, yeah, actually, I sell them. I can get you a really good deal, low APR rates. Oh, you're in the Marine Corps? Oh, 17% APR. You are good. Stuff like that. But, it's advertising for the business in which I'm in. If somebody were to say, we only carry that for attention, you're absolutely fucking right. I do. Because attention pays my bills. It is what it is. That's why I open carry. Again, it's not that I think I'm going to scare away bad people and stuff. there's two different sides of that. People might think, oh, if somebody walks into a bank and they see you carrying in there, Ryan, they're not going to rob that place. They're going to turn and hightail it the other way. And there are criminals like that, that path of least resistance. But there's also some criminals that don't give a shit. They'll look at me, can't find me, like, oh, that's the first asshole I'm taking out. So there's two sides to that sword. And I think there is validity to both sides. To what extent is debatable, and also depends on case by case what violent criminal you're possibly dealing with. So it's not that at all. If I wasn't for what I do for a living, I would probably, for the most part, conceal carry. When I go to states that I don't operate in, like I was in Florida last week. All right, now again, I couldn't carry there legally open anyway, unless I'm going to or from or while fishing, hunting, or camping. But even outside, even if I could open carry there whenever I felt like, just like I can here in Maryland, I wouldn't, because the incentive that I have for open carry in Maryland, that doesn't exist the same there. Most people are not going to be like, oh, you do carry classes, 1,000 miles north in Maryland? Oh, let me go ahead and get signed up. I'm going to buy a plane ticket and fly up to Maryland and get that fucking 1 day, 2 day class. So I don't do that there because it doesn't apply. The rules are different. Now, dealing with law enforcement, have I had a bunch of interactions with law enforcement because of that? No. Have I had interactions because of it with law enforcement? Yes. Have they been crazy, bad, adverse, violent? No. I'll go ahead and talk to you about a couple of them. So first one being in Leonardtown, Maryland, June or so of 2018. We just got done doing an AR-15 class at a hotel there in Leonardtown. Came outside after the class was done and realized they had shut down the square and had food trucks and vendors and stuff and people out there. So I was like, oh, let me grab a handful of flyers and stuff, walking around, passing around flyers and whatnot, and doing business shit. And I guess somebody was offended at the fact that there was a firearm there, and I wasn't wearing a uniform. So they went to the deputy and was like, can you say something to that guy? And long story short, the deputy came by and was like, hey, man, real quick, I need you to go ahead and cover that up for me. All right, he didn't ask to see my carry permit or anything like that. He just said, hey, man, I need you to go ahead and cover that for me. More or less kind of told me, but, halfway decent like, told me to go ahead and cover my firearm up, conceal versus open. And I said, I know the law. I know what I'm doing. It's perfectly legal and fine. I'm confident, cool, calm, and collected about that. So I was like, hey, real quick, not trying to give you a hard time, not trying to push back at you, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing. Before you can give a chance to rebut, I gave kind of like a level. So I said, hey, I'm not going to do that, but I'll tell you what, give me 30 minutes. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Give me 30 minutes. Not only will I cover it up, I'm going to go ahead and unload and secure it because I want to go over there and hit that beer truck. The beer truck's looking pretty good right now. All right? He didn't really say much. I was like, oh, whatever. All right. Gotcha, dude. And then again, no, I'm not going to do that, at least now, but I will later put it away, completely put it away, and go and get me a beer. And that's what I did. Was no big deal, no problem. Another time happened to be also in Leonardtown, Maryland. I had bought my truck at Weingartner there in Leonardtown, what was Weingartner, and the first couple oil changes and stuff are covered. So I would, whenever I'd need an oil change, I'd go there, drop it. I already had an appointment, go next door to the cafe, get breakfast, waste some time that way on my computer, waiting for the truck to be done, and I'd come back and pick it up. Well, I guess somebody saw me open carrying, walking over to the cafe from the dealership, whatever, and long story short, a cop had driven by, no lights, no sirens. It's actually at the time he was the first sergeant. He's now retired, and but he did a little drive by real quick, saw that it was me, already knew the deal, and he just kept on driving. A nice little friendly wave and kept on driving. I had no idea what was going on or whatever, or anything was happening per se. I thought he was just doing his regular patrol. And until a couple weeks later, maybe a couple months later, I had a meeting with the state police on something unrelated. And I had left the meeting. I was walking out of the meeting, and Captain Andrew Rosendahl, who's the commander of the Maryland State Police License Division, he was at that point in time, he is now still. He followed me out into the hallway. He was like, hey, man, real quick. He was like, hey, so I guess there was an incident in Leonardtown a few weeks ago. And I was like, he was like, yeah, I guess you're open carrying. Somebody saw it and called the cops. They may not have even made contact with you, but that happened. I was like, okay. He was like, just so you know, people above me asked me to ask you not to do that anymore. Perfectly legal. You're more than welcome to continue to do it, but I've been asked to ask you not to. I said, all right, I'm going to keep doing it. And he was like, yeah, I figured, but I've got to do what I've got to do. People above me telling me to tell you. I was like, I respect that. I got you, man. Like, no worries. Like, I'm going to keep doing it. He's like, all right, keep doing you. And that was the end of that. So first off, a couple things. I like to bring that up because some people will say, well, yeah, you can open carry in Maryland. Yeah, the permit allows you to do that. But if you get caught doing that, they're going to take your permit away. That's fucking bullshit. All right? If he was going to take my permit away, he would have done it right then and there. He's the captain of the Maryland State Police Life Division. He acknowledged that what I was doing is legal. I can't continue to do it. He asked me not to. It's like other things, like, on a plane stuff. It may be frowned upon, but it's legal. All right? So he said, hey, it's perfectly legal. Keep doing you and stuff. All right? It is perfectly legal for you to open carry with a Maryland handgun permit in Maryland. And they are not going to take it away if you were to get caught exercising what it allows you to do. That's just as ignorant as something saying, oh, yeah, you have a Maryland driver's license, but don't let them catch you driving an SUV or a truck. That's meant for driving cars. Well, no, it allows us to do all three of those type of vehicles. Well, yeah, but they really wanted you to just drive cars. So don't drive a truck or SUV because they will take that shit. That's just fucking ignorant. So another time, Ocean City.
On the first side, when you told you to cover your stuff, do you have to have a permit to have open carry over there?
So the Maryland permit, all right, the one that you guys are going to end up getting, all right, that Maryland handgun permit, that allows you and any other holder of the Maryland handgun permit, it allows you to open and or conceal carry. It actually doesn't.
You don't have the permit, can you hold?
No.
You can't. Okay.
Right, yeah, because some states.
Is that also considered concealed?
Yeah, so like the Maryland handgun.
Concealed.
Right, so the Maryland handgun permit, it allows the holder to open and or conceal carry. So I can do one, the other. I can do both. I can open carrying this handgun while concealed carrying another one. I can be concealed carrying a handgun, and tomorrow I'll be open carrying a handgun. It allows you, the holder, to do both. There is no concealed handgun permit in Maryland. There is no concealed carry permit. All right? It doesn't matter why you get this permit. Like before, you had to have a reason. Your reasons might vary. Again, like my first permit I got was because I was doing security work and I was a private investigator. Also, right after that, I got my permit because I own this business. It doesn't matter what your reason was. It doesn't matter the time period. It allows the holder to open and or conceal carry. Most people tend to lean towards concealed carry. And like I said, I would if I didn't have my business. But it allows you to do either or. Right? And actually, in Maryland law, it actually doesn't say open and or conceal carry. It just says wear, carry, or transport. Carry is a very broad word. All right? It leaves it open to open or concealed. All right? You can open and or conceal. Now, just because that is the case in Maryland, again, if you go to a state that all they do is they allow conceal. That's all it is. No open, no conceal. No open, just conceal. And they recognize your Maryland carry permit. Well, then in that state, you would only be able to conceal. Right? Maryland law allows the holder of the Maryland handgun permit to open or conceal while in Maryland. Doesn't say anything about that with other states. So again, just like with other things, when in Rome, do as the Romans. All right? Yes, ma'am.
Is there a limit to how many you can carry?
No, nothing in Maryland law says that you are limited in how many handguns you carry. So oftentimes I do carry two, one open and one here concealed. Maryland law doesn't say that I cannot do that. All right? And that's actually a good thing to kind of bring up is what makes something illegal? What makes something illegal? The law, right? A law has to be passed by the House and Senate, and then it's signed into law by the governor, or if it's on the state level or the federal level, the president, right? Everything is legal unless there's a law against it, right? Right now, I can pick my nose. There's no law explicitly says Ryan Gass can pick his nose, right? There's no law. Laws don't give you the ability to do stuff. They take them or restrict them, right? If they make a law tomorrow that says Ryan Gass cannot pick his nose, well, guess what? I cannot pick my nose at that point. But I can pick my nose right now all damn day if I wanted to, right? Right now my nose is starting to itch. So I want to be clear on that because like some people are like, well, where in Maryland law does it say that you can open carry a rifle or a shotgun? It doesn't. But there is in law where it says you cannot conceal carry a rifle or shotgun. Right? There's no law in Maryland that says you cannot open, that says you can or says you can't open and or conceal carry, open carry a rifle or shotgun. Right? You can, if you wanted to, legally open carry a rifle or shotgun. Now, we'll say I'm not going to get into too much of stuff because that's not what this class is about. That and I'm not an expert on hunting regulations, and there are some things that kind of play into that as well. All right, can I open carry a rifle or shotgun? Yep. But if I get pulled over on one of these country back roads with a shotgun on my passenger seat and a flashlight next to that at 11 o'clock at night, whether I was spotlighting or not, there's definitely a perception there, and I'm probably going to go to fucking jail with the DNR officer. So I don't want to get too much into that stuff because there is other things at hand there.
Just to touch back on like interaction with law enforcement on open carry or whatnot. Now, granted, with your encounters with them, it seems like they know who you are. Now, what about some average Joe like us? What do you think the likelihood? Because I know most people I talk to, my friends, they're like, man, you open carry, the cop's going to roll by, you're going to get out the car and have a gun drawn at you.
Well, so the context matters and stuff, like you pointed out. In Larentown, a lot of cops either know me directly or know of me. I also open carried last year and had an interaction with law enforcement out in Ocean City. They have no fucking idea who Ryan Gass is out there, and I'm not like on a pedestal or anything. I'm just an average person. People down in St. Mary's kind of know me a lot because I'm just born and raised from there, and I do a lot of work down there. In Ocean City, not as often, so I'm not known out there. So it's kind of back out there. I could be viewed as per se like an average person. Was out there for a class, done with the class. Called my wife, say, hey, where y'all at? Oh, we're down at the boardwalk. All right, so I came down there to hang out with them after class was over. And anyway, we're down, if you're familiar with Ocean City, you're familiar with the boardwalk. We're down at the south end of the boardwalk, down by the arcade and the big-ass parking lot down there. And we're on the boardwalk, walking north on the boardwalk, ocean to our right, the stores to our left. And if you've ever been to Ocean City, any time of the year, you know that you got the full-time cops, you got the seasonal cops during the summer, and then you got the fucking 18-year-olds that they throw a fluorescent shirt on, hand them a fucking radio and a hat and say, go out and act like you're a cop. And so I have one of those kids trailing me about 20 feet back behind me to the right, and I know he's like sitting there walking, and he's like on his radio and shit, like, hey, Bobby, come here, And I'm like, fuck, here we go. So I already started getting my permit out and stuff. I had it in my hand. And then there's a bike cop coming southbound on the boardwalk on his bike. And I could tell he's a little amped up. I'm like, fuck, here we go. And he rides past me because he doesn't know exactly who he's looking for. The kid's like, right there. And so he comes up behind me, and I can tell he's right there. So I put my permit like here. He comes up beside me, and he's like, hey, he takes it. And then he says, hey, go ahead and sit to the side for me. I can tell he's not as amped up as when I first saw him. Because to give a little context, I will say, I was wearing a long sleeve red shirt with the sleeves pulled up. Back of the shirt says firearms instructor. So I think as he's coming up behind me, he's seeing things and observing things, and I think he saw that, and that maybe put him at ease a little bit. Not much, but it definitely took the edge off. And but he pulls me aside, and first thing he says, one of the first things he does at least is, I need you to go ahead and cover that up for me. Because he's already seen my handgun permit. I think he's at least somewhat knowledgeable on that, the fact that I have a handgun permit. But he pulled me aside and was like, hey, I need you to go ahead and cover that up for me. And I said, nah, I appreciate you. I understand why you're asking me to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and respectfully decline. He was like, well, why? And I was like, well, I'm in town for work. I actually train people up on how to get their carry permits and do exactly what I'm doing now. It's advertising for the business that I'm in. And he's like, well, I don't think that's good advertisement. And I wasn't going to get into it. It me saying, well, actually it is. And, here's my financials and stuff. Like, it doesn't matter. That's a measuring contest that I don't want to participate in. So I just left it as it was. He's running my permit and stuff, seeing if it's all valid and stuff. And other bike cops are trickling in and stuff because they're all inquisitive and whatnot. And I remember one of them was talking to me, oh, so he's like, trying to dig a little bit, but also just kind of learning. He was like, oh, so you have your handgun permit? I guess you have a business? And I'm like, oh, yeah. At the time, he had every reason. And I was like, oh, yeah, I have a business. I do training, blah, blah. I said, oh, okay, cool. And then the initial cop again turns to me. He's like, hey, look, man, I need you to cover that up for me. I was like, look, I'm not trying to buck back. I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but I'm not going to do that. And he was like, look, man, He's trying to level with me, and he's like, look, man, if you were to go and buy a badge and you put that right next to your gun and stuff on your belt, look, nobody's going to call me, and I'm not going to have to bother you. All right? Now, let's break that down. Yes, but let's break it down. Is he right? Is he right? If I put a badge right next to my gun and walk around, Is anyone probably going to call him and he's going to come out and bother me? Is he right? He's right. Why though? And like you said, why is that the truth? Because people are going to think that I'm what? A cop. That is illegal for me to try to impersonate or lead people to believe that I am law enforcement. He asked me twice to stop doing something that was legal and asked me to instead do something that was illegal. All right? Again, I don't think he was a bad person. I don't think he was trying to get me caught up in shit. I don't think he was trying to set me up. He just gave me dumb fucking advice. People do it all the time. Has anyone got dumb advice from somebody in their life? Relative, friends, in-laws, all the time? All right? She didn't hear that. And so that's why I tell people, like, for real, and this is dead serious. It's kind of a joke, but it's also dead serious, though. Some of the worst people to get legal advice from, convicted felons and cops. They have the same amount of experience a lot of times when it comes to these laws, and they will give you sometimes some of the worst fucking legal advice. He literally told me, again, 2 times, stop doing that, that's legal. Oh, real quick, I would recommend that you do this. That's illegal. Don't just take what somebody tells you as, oh, well, they are law enforcement, so that must be solid advice. They enforce the law. That can't be illegal. Why would they tell me to do something that's illegal? All right? Again, not saying that law enforcement are all going to give you bad advice. Not saying they aren't capable of giving you good advice. But generally speaking, question it. All right? Also, at the same time, too, I'm not on no damn pedestal. Don't put me on a pedestal. Like, I'm a fire instructor, great, all that. I'm pretty knowledgeable, yes. But anything I tell you, look, go out and verify that shit. Read the law, especially the law I say with magazine capacity. Go out and read the law. Does it actually say that I can possess them? Does it say that I can, all that stuff? Go read the law when it comes to wear, carry, transport a firearm. Does it say that I can only conceal carry? Does it say I can open carry? What does it say? Wear, carry, transport. Don't take anyone's word, whether mine or anyone else's, for it. Because guess what? If something happens, say you get your carry permit, you go out next week, and you open carry, and you open carry with a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. If what I said was inaccurate, you think it's going to get you out of jail? Well, my instructor said no. Now, again, I want to be clear. What I'm telling you is accurate and true, but don't just take my word for it. Don't just take another fire instructor's word for it. Don't just take a law enforcement officer's word for it. If nothing else, if you have legit questions, if you read the law and you're still not clear, hey, talk to an experienced attorney and get their experienced opinion, which is still opinion, but their opinion is much more valuable, I would feel like, than my opinion. All right, my opinion is based on my experiences and what my understanding of the law is, and talking with a lot of lawyers too over the last several years. But opinions are just like anything else. We all got one. All right. Any other good questions? Yes.
You said when you went to the beer truck, you went to your truck, unloaded your weapon and secured it. What is the legality if you had a couple beers? You're perfectly safe to drive under the legal limit, but now you still have that firearm in your car, unloaded, separated. Like, what's the legality there? Driving back home with that happening?
So to be clear about who his question is for everyone, so they all know what we're talking about. You're somewhere, you're drinking alcohol, maybe perfectly fine to carry a firearm, maybe legally and ethically and morally, but you separate the firearm, gun loaded, except for the ammunition. You're driving home, you're below the legal limit. What problems can come about of that? One, everything's up to interpretation, right? And then 2, it kind of gets in that gray area to a certain extent. I'll go ahead and I'll kind of, not so much answer your question, but I'll kind of answer your question by showing you a firsthand experience that one of my clients had. A client of mine, this happened locally recently, he was headed home from work, carrying his firearm, he has a permit, he's all good. He, I want to say he's got a wife and 3 or 4 kids and stuff, and they're fucking half as crazy as mine. I understand. He stopped at a liquor store and got a 20-ounce beer and shit. And then he goes out of his car and shit, and he decides to go ahead and get a head start on it and pops it open and drinks a little bit and he's sitting in his car checking on his like Facebook, whatever bullshit, just wasting a little time and kind of getting his time in between work and fucking getting home dealing with crazy ass kids and shit. Long story short, I guess he was there for maybe 15, maybe 20 minutes. I don't know. Long story short, I'm not sure if a cop got called or if the cop just showed up. The cop rolls up, comes up to his window. He's got a open and partially consumed beer, and it comes out that he has his firearm on him. He doesn't submit to any sobriety tests, And long story short, they go ahead and they get him for DUI and illegally carrying a firearm. And that's actually an ongoing case right now. You know, and again, I will say there's three sides to every story and stuff. He gave me his side. I haven't heard the law enforcement officer's side. And then there's also the truth. Based on what he told me, all right, he had, I don't know, let's just say 6 or 7 ounces out of a 20-ounce beer. Was within the last 10, 15 minutes. I wouldn't consider that as putting anybody under the influence or intoxicating them at any level, I don't think. But part of what maybe got him to a certain extent is the fact that he didn't submit to any field sobriety tests. Now, just take the whole firearm out of it. If you don't submit to any field sobriety tests or blown in it, and they expect you, what's going to happen? You just going to drive home? No, they're going to fucking arrest you and take your driver's license, stuff like that. Think of it more or less the same when it comes to your firearm to a certain extent. If they, you know, they may not be able to prove that you're drunk, but they also maybe cannot prove that you were not intoxicated. But they have things that they can use to articulate how you were to what extent is debatable. But they got evidence to be able to use to show that, whether they're right or wrong, that he was intoxicated while carrying that firearm. All right. I will say, last I checked on that, I've been saying communication with the person. Not that I'm a lawyer or anything. I just asked him. He told me about it, and I asked him to kind of keep me in the loop because it's a learning experience. And long story short, last I checked, his lawyer was in discussions with the DA and all that shit. I think what they were going to try to do was bring down the DUI to some type of moving violation or some bullshit, and then the gun charge, they were going to drop that, but the part of the deal was that they were going to confiscate and destroy his firearm itself. All right. So, again, it kind of gets back to the talk of, is it legal? Yes. You know, might you be fine morally and ethically and legally? Maybe. But things can be misperceived, taken out of context, and all of a sudden it makes your life a whole lot harder. All right? Like we talked about a little bit earlier and stuff, do you have to tell them shit? Do you have to talk to law enforcement ever? At all? No. You know, was it a smart idea for him to do what he did? No. Do I think it's the end of the world either? No. You know, that's Monday morning quarterbacking. 2 things. Don't open that beer and just fucking do it, you know, at home, whether in your driveway or in the home itself. Also, too, I mean, I don't know how it all, again, I wasn't there, I don't know how it all came out and stuff, but, you know, less is more. The more you talk, the more you increase the chances of you going to jail, all right? Innocent people, you know, people don't talk themselves out of jail. People oftentimes do talk themselves right into jail, right? Or in trouble of some extent. If you remember nothing else when it comes to law, what you can and cannot do, if you remember nothing else, it doesn't matter if you remember everything or nothing. What should you remember? Shut up. Shut up and lawyer up, all right? Anything you say or do will be what? Used against you, absolutely. All right, absolutely. Anything you say or do can and will be used against you. So what does that mean to you? Shut up. All right, where was it? I was watching a video last night, and what it was a deputy or some type of law enforcement officer down in Florida. Long story short, he's drunk, gets pulled over. It comes out that he's law enforcement. And when it comes out that he's law enforcement, they're still doing what they got to do. They're still putting him in handcuffs. They actually book him for DUI. But you can tell the kind of the tone of the officers kind of changes when they find out that he's law enforcement. They say, when he starts talking and shit, they're like, real quick, we're going to go ahead and read your rights. Now, with those rights in mind, they didn't say, hey, with that rights in mind, do you want to go ahead and talk to me? They're like, hey, real quick, this is your rights, blah, 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 blah. Real quick, with that in mind, do you want to talk to me right now, or do you want to, you know, wait until later when you talk to your lawyer? You know, and he was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm you know, even in his drunkest state, he was like, you know, between his drunkest state but his experience as law enforcement himself, he was like, no, you're right, I need to shut the fuck up. I need to stop talking. He was drunk talking and stuff, and then like they look, slow down. These are your rights. Do you want to talk to me right now? Body cams on. You want to talk to me right now? No? Okay, all right, I'm not going to pressure you. All right, cool. All right? You have that same right, that same ability too. You have what protects that right? What protects your right to remain sound, to not self-incriminate? The Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. Plead the Fifth. I plead the Fifth. OJ. Has it been that long? All right. Shut up. Shut up. I'm not gonna, I'll kind of get into it. Let's go ahead and get into it, not too much. But I think OJ fucking did that shit. Right? There might be people that disagree. He did that shit, right? And he didn't go to jail for it. Why? Because he knew how to shut his mouth, and he had great-ass lawyers, all right? Now, you may not be able to afford the same great-ass lawyers he had. I think half of them are probably dead and gone now. But that's a perfect example of, look, you could have done something wrong, all right? Maybe it was illegal, but it wasn't, like, morally wrong. Like, there's things we can do. Has anyone never sped? Did all y'all do the speed limit all the way to fucking here? All right? No, all right? So you can, do things that maybe are, illegal, but they aren't like end of the world. No one's going to lose sleep over it stuff. What I'm not trying to tell you is, hey, go out and do whatever you want, break the law, and just shut up and lawyer. But I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say is, I have seen firsthand people do things that are, in my opinion, within the law. All right, and they get hemmed up because, hey, it's not my job to figure out if you're guilty or whatever. Hey, I'm just going to forward charges to the DA and let them sort that shit out. Let the jury sort that out. It is best for you, I'm telling you, 99% of the time, it's best for you just to shut up and let your lawyer do the talking. All right? When law enforcement get into, say, officer-involved shootings, as you say, which is relatable to certain with us in this situation. If they're involved in officer-involved shooting, what happens every single time? What do they put on? Administrative leave, right? Days, maybe even weeks, possibly months, right? During that time, what are they doing? They're shutting up, they're lawyering up, they're talking to their union reps, and they're making sure that, even if they're perfectly in the right, especially in the climate nowadays and stuff, they're making sure that they are protected with their legal representation, right? I watch a lot of, body cam footage and shit. Again, a common thing and stuff, whenever something happens with law enforcement, they are always, look, camera's rolling, shut up, don't talk, wait, go ahead, get on the phone right now, I'm gonna take your file from you, go ahead, call your union rep right now, call them, and go step to the side, away from all of us and our body cams, and you talk to them right now. Shut up otherwise, don't talk to me, shut up, shut up, shut up. If something happens, you want to talk, you want an event, you have nothing to hide, you're a good person. But that's not the time to talk, all right? Have you ever been in a situation, say a car accident or something like that, and, everything, you say maybe what happened, blah, blah, but then like 2 days later, 3 days later, 4 days later, you start remembering different things. They didn't remember immediately after the car accident. Does anyone have that happen? That happens with, these type of situations too and stuff. So it's best to calm down, relax, decompress, for days. Talk to your lawyer, and what you're doing more or less with your lawyer, and I'm not no legal expert in that, I'm just an average person, but more or less your lawyer is your spokesperson. They're going to help with you, they're going to help articulate how what you did was perfectly right, perfectly legal, within your legal right, and the charges shouldn't be brought, and or they get brought and stuff, how those charges do not apply to you, because what you did was perfectly right, perfectly within the legal bounds of what you can do, all right? You don't do that. Even if you are a lawyer, anybody in here a lawyer? We know one. All right? Even a lawyer themselves does not represent themselves in a legal case. All right? A lawyer that represents himself has a fool for a client. I'm telling you, the best thing you can do, again, I really stress this a whole lot. If you remember nothing else, just simply shut up and call your lawyer. All right? And again, make sure that you do that away from cameras, away from people, away from anything like that. All right, because if that phone call is picked up on someone's body cam, if they hear that and they recite what they heard, all right, that can all be used against you too. All right, exercise your attorney-client privilege. Exercise your Fifth Amendment right. All right.